The United Kingdom has an epic history and a wealth of secrets still to uncover. Every year, hundreds of archaeologists dig, dive, and sieve to find clues, to add to the great historical jigsaw of our ancestors' lives.
You know when people say, what's the best thing you've ever found? Guys, this.
I'm Professor Alice Roberts. This year we've uncovered some astonishing finds and made some truly groundbreaking discoveries.
Wow, look at that.
Each team of archaeologists has been armed with a dig diary camera so they can record their discoveries as they happen.
That is brilliant. Dave, I love you.
Our roving archaeologist, Dr. Nisha McSweeney, is out on the digs.
Who are we looking at?
It's royal.
And I'll be inviting the teams to bring in their finds for closer analysis.
That is absolutely beautiful.
This time we're exploring the south of Britain, where archaeologists have been making incredible discoveries both above and below the waves. From a Stone Age settlement found off the Dorset coast,
incredible sight. You know, nothing else like it in the country.
To an Elizabethan theatre in the heart of London.
This must have been such a raucous place. It's kind of 16th century EastEnders.
And a mysterious Iron Age burial near Dorchester.
I've been working in Dorset for over 40 years and I've never come across anything like this.
Welcome to Digging for Britain. After the invasion of Britain in 43 AD by the Roman Emperor Claudius, it was here in the south that the first forts and settlements grew up. Archaeologists in East Sussex are out investigating one of these early settlements, but with no Roman records of this place, its name and its purpose have been lost in time. The excavation is located around 10 miles northeast of Brighton, in the village of Barcombe. The site was first discovered in 2011 by chance. Archaeologist Rob Wallace was excavating part of a Roman road when a wider geophysical survey revealed a possible settlement.
This survey is magnetometry, so it picks up the magnetic variations in the earth. Especially in the Roman period and other periods, you tend to get a lot of charcoal and burnt material, which is very magnetic. So these will show up ditches, linear features. So the geophysics we use is an indication that there's something there, rather than actually telling us what it is there.
Artefacts already uncovered suggest this settlement was already in existence by 70 AD, just 27 years after the Roman invasion. With no historical records to help us here, Rob is trying to work out the role this settlement might have played in the wider context of Roman Britannia. He looks first for clues in its layout and location.
Original settlement around about 70 AD is round here, and it's a small 4-grid system. The Roman road, which goes to London, comes up through here. We have the Greensand Way, which is the east-west route, which goes to Hardham and then Chichester. And we have a road going eastwards to Arlington and then on to Pevensey.
As well as the roads heading off in all directions, the settlement is also very close to a waterway.
The River Ouse is a tidal river. It was probably a lot wider and shallower in the Roman period. The Romans would have used flat-bottom boats anyway, and it's an easy way to move mass bulk. So possibly grains and things like that, iron ore that's coming out from the Weald.
While the Romans are famous for their road building, waterways were just as important. They used seagoing merchant ships to transport goods in and out of the country, and river barges for transporting goods within it.
So you can move stuff in mass. They can move around the rivers rather than on carts, which is more costly and time-consuming. So basically we have north, south, east and west covered from this location.
This is a key revelation. The site was well connected by roads and river to other Roman settlements in the region. The team also discover that the site itself is surrounded by a ditch.
If we look out here, you'll see that hedgerow, which goes all the way up to that corner. It's then coming all the way up, 3/4 of the way up to there. That hedgerow is this enclosure ditch, is the inner enclosure ditch. It then comes back across the site, it levels up with the oak tree and comes down to form this around it.
The ditch suggests a certain level of fortification. It meant that you could only get in through approved entry points. The ditch was a way of controlling who and what came in and out of the site. Further clues to the role of this settlement come in the huge variety of artefacts that are being unearthed, including over 300 coins.
So here we have a Septimus Severus coin, around about 198 to 200 AD, which is silver from this year's excavation. Yeah, so it's quite a collection. They date from early Roman right the way through to 435 AD.
Along with the coins, evidence is also building of a site rich in material goods coming from all over Britain.
This is a mortoria bowl. This is a whiteware, possibly from Oxford, and they normally have a grit inclusion in the actual base, and these are used for mixing, so they'll have maybe greens and stuff like that with olive oil.
There are also goods coming in from further afield.
So here you have a lion attacking another animal. You've got different gladiatorial scenes throughout.
This is a great example of the classic red Roman pottery known as Samian ware.
As it's got the maker's stamp on it. It's been manufactured in Gaul, which is France, modern-day France, from the Roman period.
They're even finding pieces of Roman glass.
You can see some inclusions in it if you look up to the light. There's some little bubbles. But this would have been the neck and possibly comes out to a square bottle.
There's no evidence for glass making from scratch in Roman Britain, so once again this is evidence of luxury goods being imported from across the Roman world. Caught on their dig diary camera, the site is continuing to yield a constant flow of intriguing artefacts.
I'm sticking my neck out on this one, but it could be the...
There you go. Oh, look at that. Maybe that is that.
Like it grew there.
Wow.
Like it grew there, look.
This year, the team are also finding evidence of manufacturing processes taking place within the settlement itself.
We've got a part of a kiln here in situ, and that is the base of it, which would have went across and up to where the white chalk is.
This kiln could have been used to make tiles and pottery for the town, or potentially for export. The finds are helping to paint a picture of this forgotten Roman settlement. The archaeologists have unearthed artefacts that have arrived here from across the Roman world, as well as large numbers of coins. And then there are those road and river access routes. Rob is considering the possibility that this could have been an important trading hub, and possibly even a centre for Roman administration.
The finds indicate that it's an official site. It's under the Roman government's control, so people will be here collecting taxes, or if goods are coming in, looking at what's coming in and what's going out, and see if there's any taxes to pay on that.
With each season, they're discovering that this trading settlement is far larger than previously thought. Rob and his team plan to keep coming back for many years to come.
You never know what you're going to find from one day to the next. You can be, a small bit of pot, or a coin, or a brooch, or, something more personal. It's an amazing feeling.
Leaving the Roman era, we now peer further back into British prehistory. Our next dig sees archaeologists donning scuba gear and plunging into the chilly waters of the Solent to investigate an extremely ancient Stone Age settlement. Just off the coast of the Isle of Wight lies one of the UK's most unusual archaeological sites. Today, a team from the Maritime Archaeology Trust, led by Gary Momber, are planning to survey the site. And they hope to raise what is thought to be an 8,000-year-old timber structure for further analysis.
Pretty good. The first dive of the day. Visibility is a few metres. Tides dropping off, running quite fast. But it's just incredible seeing these lovely layers of trim wood lying flat there. 8,000 years old. First time it's been uncovered. Okay, Dave, they're ready.
And go.
Lying just 11 metres beneath the waves are worked timbers that date back to the Mesolithic, or Middle Stone Age. The Mesolithic was a time before farming, when the people living in Britain were still nomadic hunter-gatherers.
What I love is really getting on the site and uncovering. It's just finding things for the first time in 8,000 years, and then knowing that that's going to tell us so much about those people.
This site was discovered over 20 years ago by an unusual sort of archaeologist, a lobster.
We saw this lobster kicking out these flints from a hole. I thought, oh, that's really nice. He picked up these little bits of flint and brought them to the surface and said, look, worked flints on the seabed. And that was how we found it.
Well-preserved Mesolithic sites are incredibly rare. Archaeologists often just find scatters of worked flint, like the ones the lobster discovered. But when these archaeologists excavated around the lobster's burrow, they started to find ancient timbers.
There's lots of wood, there's structures being built, there's posts, there are these sort of series of these sort of platforms that are put in place. There seems to be a living spot.
But these ancient structures are under threat. For 8,000 years, the wood has been preserved under a blanket of silt and mud. Now, changing currents are causing extensive erosion along this stretch of coastline, exposing the timbers and leaving the wood open to attack.
As you get these wood-boring organisms, you get piddock and gribble, move into it, dig lots of holes, and you see it in the sample, so everything's sort of compromised and undermined.
Underwater, the divers are completing a survey of the site. It can be a very difficult work environment.
The harder the current is running, the harder it is for you to work. And because you're operating in 3 dimensions, it's not just on a flat surface, you're up and down as well. So it adds challenge to the diving, which is the whole point of doing this really.
The ancient timbers are photographed and each piece logged and tagged. The divers then start to bring them to the surface.
This is the sort of material that we've got on the seabed. And see what they've done is they have got bits of timber and they've sliced it. So it's flat on one side, and on the other side it's sort of bark. Another one there, and they've sort of overlaid them to form a sort of layer or platform on the seabed.
The specific purpose of these timber platforms is still unknown, but Gary has a working hypothesis.
We know it was wet around here, but boggy, so they would have been, would have been a nice platform to stand on and walk on, a dry area for whatever activity they might have been doing.
These Mesolithic people seem to have constructed something quite permanent. This is clearly much more than just a temporary camp. It challenges our ideas about Mesolithic hunter-gatherers as nomads always on the move.
These things are very rare because this was a hunter-gatherer society that was known to move around the place. But here we got, well, it looks more like a settlement. It looks more like there's been a lot of time invested in this particular site. Well, it would have been a special place to live at the time. It would have been a nice little sheltered valley. You're very near sources of flints, just in the chalk cliffs. You would have had wildfowl, you've had vegetation, a place that you could probably live all year round.
Over the course of the day, the divers have been steadily bringing up the whole Mesolithic platform, piece by piece. Coming up from the last dive, Gary brings up the final parts.
That was good. That's the last big piece on top. They've all come up in much more pieces, but this was a big plank sitting on top. Degraded, but it's just one hefty piece of timber. There's just, you know, there's a whole landscape down there that we really want to... It's just not enough. We need more time. Incredible sight. You know, nothing else like it in the country.
All of the artefacts that were lifted from the seabed are now in the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton, and our roving archaeologist Nisha McSweeney is visiting their labs.
Okay, yes. So what we're going to do is I'll take you inside.
Excavating an underwater prehistoric site has its challenges, but piecing the finds back together is a whole new headache.
No. So, Gary, what are we doing today?
Well, these boxes contain all the artefacts, all the parts of the platform that we lifted. They've been in cold storage. We're going to get them out now and we're going to reconstruct them for the first time.
Oh, it's cold. That water's cold.
So we keep them cold and dark and in fresh water to minimise the degradation and to keep them stable for as long as possible. We got to spend time analysing it and recording it. And it's only when we've done that we can extract the information that will tell us about these people, of which we know so little.
They're still really delicate. I guess we have to handle them with a lot of care.
A lot of it's been eaten away by these marine boring organisms. They drill down into it. See the grain of a worm that's gone through. It's trapped through here.
The platform is quite a complex structure, made up of several layers of what once was interlocking wood.
We don't have any other blueprints of Mesolithic platforms. This is the first one.
The structure is one thing, but there's also how are they doing it, and how are they converting trees into different sorts of planks, and what tools are they using. So all those sort of questions will come out of this.
Each piece was given a unique number underwater, which we should now be able to match up against the team's photographs. It's quite a challenge to rebuild.
So this is piece 51.
Which is this one here.
That
so
one.
you now have to turn it around the other way.
Right. This one looks like it's 022.
Or 25.
Possibly. 20 smudge. Oh, that's a big bit.
Another one.
There's a big bit. It's a puzzle, and I'm puzzled because it's not just there, it's different layers. Bits go underneath, over each other, they kind of interweave. It's the whole kind of interlocking, interlacing, puzzle-tastic platform.
In trying to put the platform back together, it's apparent to me that this was a well-thought-out and complicated piece of engineering, with multiple layers all carefully cut and fitted together.
This is a pre-settlement phase, and yet you wouldn't expect it from Mesolithic people, from hunter-gatherers. It's just incredible to see it.
No, you thought they just ran around, broke twigs off and built lean-tos and killed the odd animal, but here they were building these complicated structures.
Proper carpentry.
Yeah, and very complicated, as we're finding out.
Despite what seemed to be an insurmountable challenge, we managed to piece back together the 8,000-year-old Mesolithic wooden platform.
That's it there.
Beautiful.
Ta-da.
There it is. Is this the first time it's all been together, reassembled since it came out of the sea?
Yeah, this is it. This is the most complete section we have. And it's, well, to me, it's really impressive. It may look like just loads of bits of wood, but really, I mean, this was made by someone 8,000 years ago, laid out for a purpose we don't know because we know very little about these people.
This is just one part of a massive set of platforms still lying underwater.
We can then start looking at some of the detail on some of the timbers and how they relate to each other. We can try and use that to help sort of interpret the building method.
The platform is a unique find that has advanced our understanding of our nomadic Mesolithic ancestors, clearly showing that they built permanent structures.
The intricacy of this whole platform, this whole structure, has actually been really surprising. The process of putting it back together has helped me to understand the process of how it must have been made, and it was so carefully, beautifully made. It's absolutely jaw-dropping.
Our next dig takes us to southern Dorset and the chance discovery of an extremely rare early Iron Age burial. The dig is taking place in a private cottage garden 8 miles from Dorchester. In 2013, builders were installing a new sewage pipe for a medieval cottage owned by the National Trust. Work came to a halt when they stumbled across some human bones. Archaeologist Dr. Martin Papworth was called in to investigate.
To find a JCB bucket full of bones is an extraordinary thing. Obviously, it doesn't happen every day, does it? And, but it just raises lots of questions, doesn't it? I mean, how old are the bones? Is it one person? Is it several people? And why are they there?
A bone sample sent for radiocarbon testing indicated the burial dated from around 800 BC, the very early Iron Age. In the Iron Age, people were farming the land, living in roundhouses, building hill forts, and starting to use a new metal, iron, for tools and weapons. It's rare to find burials from this period. People may have been cremating the dead and scattering burned bone, or leaving bodies out in the open to decompose. It's taken Martin several years to raise the funds to excavate the site, and now he's back with a team of volunteers. He wants to investigate how the bodies were buried in order to understand the funeral practices of these Iron Age people. Already they're finding that the graves were carefully constructed.
Dug a pit, they've laid the burials or the bones in the pit, and then they've placed the stones over it and buried it. So the stones are the capping to the funeral remains.
Over the next few days, the stones are removed and the full scale of the burials is revealed. Martin has uncovered 3 skeletons. Their size suggests they could have been quite young.
So you have one skull there, another crushed skull here, and on the other side of the pipe trench, you've got another crushed skull here. Each one had a large stone above it. Over the years, as the flesh has rotted from these bodies, that the skulls have impacted and collapsed under the weight of the stones.
The archaeologists are finding something strange about the way the bodies were buried.
There's the skull, there's the teeth, there's the backbone, there's the shoulder, humerus running down through here, a series of ribs, but the whole thing has been caved back in and folded very, very sharply, and these are the 2 legs above the head with the toes of each foot, one above the other. So to get it in that sort of position, you'd have to tie the body up before you put it in the hole, because it's very hard to squeeze someone in that kind of tight angle.
It appears the bodies may have been buried in a tightly crouched position. While crouched burials like this have been found at Iron Age sites in Wales and Cornwall, for Martin, this is a first.
I've been working in Dorset for over 40 years now, and I've never come across anything like this or heard about it. We know that there are rituals where young people are put into the ground as part of a religion. But these people could have been dead some time before they were put in the ground, so that they could be trussed up in these positions. And it could have been a caring thing to do. It may be loving families, placing people in graves in a way they always do. Or it may be something more sinister, maybe something more brutal. All we can do is speculate.
With no grave goods accompanying the burials, the archaeologists are left with many unanswered questions. But they're also left feeling a deep connection with these ancestors.
You get a sense of these are people, and when you spend a day cleaning bones, you do feel rather sort of closer, and you wonder about them and how they interacted with this beautiful place, that they lived here too, though 2,800 years ago.
With the dig drawing to a close, Martin and the team decide to leave the skeletons in their graves, just taking small bone samples for DNA analysis.
We never came here to take the bodies away from their resting place. We just came to take small samples to enable us, the scientists, to talk about the origins of these people. So they will remain here in the ground where we found them. The local people who live in the village have taken this place to heart, and they will look after them in the future.
I'm intrigued to find out more about these curious graves.
We don't have many burials from the early Iron Age.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's a very blank sort of period.
But this will be fascinating because if there's good preservation of DNA, then you could sample the whole genome. I'm noticing the arm bone there and the top of that humerus looks as though it's separate. Is that real?
It is, that's right, yes.
So that's a separate epiphysis,
Yes.
which means that bone is still growing.
Yes.
So this is a juvenile. This
Yes,
is not
right.
an adult.
No.
Yeah.
And they're all young.
Are
They're
they?
all teenagers.
Yeah.
Yes. We'd like to know why these three are together. So, are they related in any way? Are they brother and sister?
You know, with DNA, we should be able to at least start to answer these questions. It hasn't been possible to answer them before. Were there any signs of cause of death at all?
No, that wasn't seen.
So it's quite a strange burial.
They bound them when they buried them, trussed up as tightly as possible, legs and arms like this, perhaps wrapping them in something and then binding it tight and bringing the legs back up like that.
Looking at burial practices like this, it seems very odd to us today. But then, of course, this might be just perfectly normal burial practice, a respectful way to treat the dead.
It's a sort of window into a piece of the past we just don't understand, isn't
Yeah,
it? Which makes it fascinating.
Mudlarking is a practice which has been popular in London since at least the 18th century. People scoured the banks of the Thames looking for valuable trinkets or cargo that had fallen off passing ships. But archaeologists sometimes indulge in a spot of mudlarking as well, and our next excavation focuses on a huge artefact, 24 metres long, a submarine chaser from the First World War. The dig takes place on the banks of the River Thames in Isleworth on the outskirts of West London. A team from the Thames Discovery Programme are investigating a sorry-looking watercraft left to rot in thick mud behind a boatyard. But this wreck has a story to tell. It's the last known example of a First World War watercraft known as a motor launch.
As far as we know, there are no plans in existence for these things. So the only way we can find out how these things were actually built is by digging holes in the mud and trying to record it.
During the First World War, motor launches were part of the Royal Navy's answer to the looming threat of German submarine ambush. On the 7th of May 1915, the Lusitania was torpedoed with nearly 2,000 passengers on board. The ocean liner was ripped in two and sank in just 18 seconds. Over 1,000 people died in the attack. The Navy swiftly placed an order of motor launches with the Electric Launch Company based in America. These fast little boats were armed with depth charges, machine guns and a cannon, and would be sent out to patrol alongside British shipping.
They managed to knock out 550 of these in 488 days. And because the US was neutral at the time, they had to be part assembled in New York, put on railway wagons taken up to Canada for full assembly, and were then shipped across the Atlantic to serve in the North Sea, the Mediterranean, and all around the European coast.
This specific craft was called ML-286. Post-war, she was retired from the military and converted into a houseboat. At some point, she was brought here to the boatyard to be patched up, but sadly the repairs proved too expensive, so she was abandoned and has been here ever since.
We've been here for 7 days, slowly trying to excavate out the middle of her and try and learn some of the constructional details of the vessel.
Each day, the team don't have much time on site. They must gather as much information as possible about this important little vessel before the tide turns. They take measurements and photographs and make drawings to create a detailed plan. But knee-deep in thick mud, this is a far harder task than the average dig.
But I think probably the most challenging aspect of it is it's by far the muddiest site we have, which can be fun. Everything gets covered in mud, but you've just got to embrace the mud. There's no point trying to not get dirty on this side.
All week I kept my feet pretty much dry. I've just filled my whole boot with water. Oh no.
When the order for the motor launches was placed, it was a challenge to deliver the fleet in such a short space of time. With foundries struggling to keep up with demand, even jeweller Tiffany's stepped in to supply brass. But despite the rich benefactors, the team are surprised at the construction.
These upper ribs, these are actually made of sort of really cheap plywood. They're actually held together by bits of ply, which no one knew. We knew they were cheap, we didn't know quite how cheap, but we're finding that out now.
After her duties in World War I, this plucky vessel also served in the Second World War, rescuing British soldiers as one of the little ships of Dunkirk. She was then retired and repurposed to be used as a houseboat on the Thames.
Just trying to piece together or tease out the different bits from the original to what was done when she was turned into a houseboat. People have the time to take and the money to spend, and so you start getting some of the original very cheap fittings, softwood fittings, replaced by this, which is hardwood.
Elsewhere in the hull, the team are uncovering further features.
See, our porthole opens! That's so exciting!
The capstan would have been on the bow of the ship for letting go the anchor and then winding it up again.
With the dig completely dictated by the tides, Elliot must run a tight ship and keep a close eye on the river.
It comes in very quickly. When you're downstream, you've got plenty of warning. Here upstream, you've got no indication. It's running out, and suddenly it's going the other way, and it's coming in quickly. So we've got to get out of the mud and across the river, or else we're camping here tonight.
The team now hope to use their photographs and drawings of this last remaining motor launch to create a detailed record of the structure of this historically important craft. Our next dig is back in Dorset, where archaeologists are investigating a Roman site. It was first dug in the late 1700s when stunning mosaics were found, but we know that they were dug up. We also know that very little attention was paid to what this building actually was, so many questions remain. The excavation is located just outside the village of Frampton, next to the River Frome. Archaeologist Dr. Miles Russell and his team from Bournemouth University are investigating the site. They want to find out about the people who lived here and, if possible, some clues about the relationship between these Romans and the wider local population.
It's a Roman building that's been known for some time, but it's one of a number of extremely late Roman luxury buildings that are occurring in Dorset in the 4th century AD.
This is a late Roman site, dating to some 300 years after the invasion.
Up until this point, Roman activity in Dorset is fairly low-key. There's no real villas until we get to the 4th century, and suddenly they're everywhere. So the real question is, what is happening in Dorset? Why does it take 250 to 300 years, and then there's a sudden explosion of wealth? These are starting to dominate the countryside.
It seems odd that the Romans didn't stamp their mark on Dorset until so late. Elsewhere in England, Romans were building lavish villas and ornate temples. They brought with them a Mediterranean style of architecture with painted plaster walls and elaborate mosaic floors. Back Back at the dig, Miles starts to uncover the footprint of the villa.
You can see where Harry's working down here. He's found this wall. It might be part of this sort of more extensive rooms coming through. That block of stone there, I think, might be part of a step or an entrance structure going up and into the corridor. So it's some kind of formal entranceway here. And then this is a slightly destroyed wall, and you can see we're coming into now mosaic. So this is some of the mosaic that Lyson's recorded in the 1790s. That is very nice. That is amazing. Right. Lovely. Absolutely incredible.
When the mosaics were first revealed in 1794, they were so impressive that King George III came to visit. But they were not preserved in situ and seem to have been taken away as souvenirs. Despite the fact the mosaics are mostly gone, there's still plenty of material on site that could reveal more about who was living here and their status in the community.
It's the rubbish that we're interested in, things that tells us about ordinary lives of people living in this site. So the sorts of things that were not saved during the 1790s dig. This was a large rectangular hollow tile that's built into the walls that conveys heating from under the floor and up through the walls themselves. So this is basically cavity wall heating. So to find these tiles means that we've got a heated room. It's pushing us towards the interpretation that this is the main entertainment space. So it's more information that just wasn't recorded in the 1790s.
Captured here on their dig diary camera, the team are also unearthing evidence that the outside of the villa was richly decorated. This carved sandstone finial would have sat on the apex of the roof.
Wow, that is gorgeous. Dave, I love you. Everything that we're finding, from the box through tiles, which suggests underfloor heating, from the wall plaster, and now also from the pottery and animal bone, it all fits a domestic context. It is a wealthy, high-status building up against the River Frome in quite an exotic and luxurious part of the Dorset landscape.
In amongst the rubble, Miles is also finding intriguing evidence of the people that lived here. One astonishing item even gives us a glimpse of their religious beliefs.
This is a coin of the Roman Emperor Magnentius in about 350 AD. We've got his face on one side, and he was very keen to advertise that he was a Christian emperor. So on the back of his coin, we've got the Chi-Rho symbol, the P and the X. The key thing about this, it's been pierced, so they've worn it around their neck.
The Roman Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in 312 AD. With his backing, this religion slowly spread through the Roman world, reaching even the distant province of Britannia.
And it's a nice little individual find that gives us a little insight to the sorts of religions that were going on here. These are a new wealthy elite that's coming in from another part of the empire, and they're building their luxury houses here, and they're bringing their exotic Eastern faith with them. And it's coins like this that give us that indicator of that sort of personalised aspect of this new religious belief system.
But this opulent villa and its Christian Roman occupants are only a small part of the story of Dorset at this time. At another site not far from the villa, Miles is also finding evidence of the people who lived in the wider landscape here. These people belong to a tribe called the Durotriges. The Durotriges were one of a number of tribes in southwest Britain at the time of the Roman invasion and occupation. The land of the Durotriges seems to have centred on Dorset, with parts of southern Wiltshire and Somerset as well. But very little is known about their relationship with the Roman Empire. The artefacts Miles has unearthed give us a glimpse into the lives of these people.
The Durotriges, the local tribe, are constantly recycling, reusing, and making sure that everything has a purpose. So this is actually carved out of a sheep bone. You can see it's a comb. Other things that we get from native sites around here, we get lots of spindle whorls. So these are sort of the weights at the end of a spindle during weaving process. We get no real idea of the range of materials they were wearing. The only real dress indicators that we get are often like this little bronze pins or brooches. This is much like a modern-day safety pin.
It seems that the Durotriges lived peacefully alongside the Roman settlers, but these artefacts appear to show the Durotriges maintained a strong sense of their own identity.
This is probably a wine vessel or possibly an alcohol, sort of a beer or mead cup. It's completely unlike anything that the Roman world is producing. People are using ceramic styles that aren't linked to the Roman Empire. They're using things that are more native design, and they're not high on status symbols.
So despite some Romans building lavish villas in Dorset, Roman culture didn't seem to seep out into the wider countryside.
As far as we can see, the locals here, the Durotriges tribe, didn't embrace Roman culture at all. They don't seem to be impressed by or want to be part of that Roman system. They don't seem to want to be Roman.
I've asked Miles to bring in some of those fascinating finds for closer analysis. So you've got this pattern where you've got very different material culture in the villa compared with sites in the surrounding countryside. What does this tell us about the people of Dorset and how they engaged with being part of the Roman Empire?
I don't think really sort of engaging with it at all. You know, whereas in the east we can see Roman villas, we can see Roman culture, right the way down to native settlements. We've got high status Roman pottery and so on. There's none of that filtering down to the natives here in Dorset.
It's fascinating because it shows us how dangerous it is to look at a scenario in one part of our country and then extrapolate that across the whole nation.
They are existing within the Roman world, but for whatever reason they're not choosing to be Roman.
So what are these objects?
So we've got a range which are all native. We've got sort of combs, we've got spindle whorls. There's a whole range of craft activities.
So are these brooches not Roman then?
No, they're not.
Is that more of a kind of native British
It is,
design?
yes. I mean, we see these really from about 80 BC onwards. We see them going right the way through the Roman period, but it's not something that is Roman at all. It's not influenced by the Roman world whatsoever.
That's fascinating. So you're seeing a completely different culture.
Yes,
British
I mean, the Roman fibulae are far more decorated, far more sort of squared and really sort of quite chunky status items. These are quite small in comparison.
And then this little bowl, I mean, this is beautiful, but this is very much a British form.
Yes. So that's black burnish ware. It's very highly polished. It's made in southern Dorset right the way up until the 4th century AD. And again, you've got that sort of diamond X-shaped design around the outside.
And it's got this inbuilt strainer on it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes.
I really like it. It's beautifully made. And then look at that crazy design on the base.
These are all individual, unique items, so they've got their own personality to them.
These people clearly thought of themselves as being the people of Dorset.
Exactly, and there's no real desire to be Roman. They're paying their tax, they're living within that system, but they're not choosing to become Roman in any shape or form.
They're not adopting that identity?
No.
So even when you've got villas appearing in the countryside, in Dorset, they seem to be capsules of Roman culture. It's not seeping out.
No, it's a little sort of cultural bubble. I think the wealthy are living in their house with their own estate, but their culture's not seeping out to the wider world, and neither is the native stuff coming in. So they are very much sort of excluded between these two separate worlds. There's a sort of almost like a cultural apartheid going on there between these two different cultures.
We know that the Romans and Greeks loved putting on plays, but it wasn't until the 16th century that theatre as we know it really took off in Britain. And the focus of the drama was London, where raucous comedies and historical tragedies were performed in the open air. For our next dig, Nisha McSweeney joins a team from MOLA, Museum of London Archaeology, as they excavate an Elizabethan playhouse.
The dig takes place in Whitechapel, the bustling heart of London's East End. The impending construction of a new student accommodation block has opened up an exciting archaeological possibility. Records suggest that this was the location of a long-lost open-air theatre, built in the back garden of a popular Elizabethan inn known as the Boar's Head. MOLA were commissioned to investigate.
We're here to see the remains of the Boar's Head Playhouse. We don't know much about it. It's not a Shakespearean playhouse, but we think it was a thriving theatre.
Records reveal that the Boar's Head Playhouse dates from the 16th and 17th century to the time of Queen Elizabeth I. Senior archaeologist Heather Knight is showing me around the site.
Where we're standing now is at the back of what would have been the Boar's Head Playhouse. The stage was under where our machine is now. The tiring house would have been just slightly outside of the site.
What's the tiring house?
The tiring house is like the changing rooms where the actors put on their attire.
And where was the inn, the old inn?
The inn
where
itself
would
would have actually fronted the road, which is Whitechapel High Street. So right down the far side of the site would have been the inn.
Playhouses were at their peak during the 1600s and were sometimes attached to pubs. The theatre at the Boar's Head was one of the earliest known in London. There are records of performances taking place in the pub's backyard, but it wasn't until 1598 that a purpose-built stage was constructed. Digging down some 3 metres below modern street level, the team finally arrived at the site of the pub.
So what we do, we start taking off the top levels using a big machine, and then slowly as we come down we can see from the finds within those layers that we're going back through time, and then when we get back to the 18th century layers we then go to hand digging, and then we work our way down into the 17th century that way.
So can you tell me what we've got here then?
And we're actually standing within the foundations for a building that was part of the Boar's Head Playhouse. So you can stand here looking at actors performing on the stage in front of you.
This rectangular playhouse makes this site distinct from other Elizabethan theatres, which were more commonly built as rounded, enclosed structures. For example, Shakespeare's Globe, which was built 2 years after the Boar's Head Playhouse.
I think the spotlight has been more on Bankside because of the associations with Shakespeare. And I think that's part of the reason the Boar's Head might have slipped off people's radar slightly. It's been overlooked a little bit. So yeah, this is its chance to shine.
For a small fee of 1 or 2 pennies, audiences could enjoy a whole afternoon of entertainment. The combination of performance and beer made for a high-spirited crowd.
I'm looking at some of the plays that were performed here when it was a proper playhouse. They're kind of city plays. They would have really appealed to a city audience. They're kind of scandalous and lampooning public figures. You know, they do push the boundaries a little bit, yeah.
But as the more puritanical mid-17th century approached, there was little tolerance of drunken crowds enjoying raucous satire. At the start of the Civil War in 1642, most of London's playhouses shut down. With closure on the horizon, the Boar's Head landowner saw a development opportunity. The site was split into small plots and sold off. The team have found evidence of what happened next.
Where we're standing now is after the Boar's Head has gone out of use. And this end of the site, we're finding a lot of clay pipe making.
Okay.
And also a lot of pipe clay.
This is actual pipe clay?
This is actual pipe clay, and it's still really squishy.
So they're using this to make, what kind of pipes? What?
Very
tiny.
It is tiny, and by the shape of the bowl, we know this is 17th century.
What other things were they making around in this industrial area, apart from lots and lots of pipe?
We're also finding evidence for horn working. So you take the useful part of an animal horn, which is that outside coating, it's a bit like your fingernails, and you can kind of peel it and stretch it, and you can make lantern panes because it's translucent. You can also make things like, you know, drinking cups and spoons, and the covers for horn books. So Middlesex Street in the 17th century really does seem to be the epicentre of horn working in London.
After the end of this kind of theatrical period in the site, it then becomes a kind of commercial centre.
It is really industrial, and it's kind of the industries you wouldn't maybe want to live next door to. You know, if you've got pipe kilns, you've got people boiling up animal horns.
Smelly,
smoky.
Yeah,
maybe that's why it's happening on the east side of the city.
As London grew, factories and other manufacturing sites tended to be built on London's east side. It's thought that they were built here to make use of the prevailing westerly winds. This would mean that the smoke and pungent odours were blown away from the city centre.
So what are our finds that we have from the boar's head itself? Well, amongst our sort of selection of finds on the table, the things that are really kind of obviously boar's head are beer mugs. These beautifully black glazed 17th century ceramics. They're kind of, originally it would have been quite tall, maybe with another handle, and we're finding lots of those. So what about the industrial installations? We were talking about hornworking, and we obviously get the waste product, which is the inside of the animal horn. These just get thrown away because they have no use for those. The big thing we have going on is clay tobacco pipe making. We have wasters, the ones that have failed the process, and so they've not been smoked, really clean on the inside. But on the table here we've got part of that actual kiln fabric. So you can see it's really vitrified from the heat of the kiln, and you can actually see how they've used clay pipes within the fabric of the kiln. It's almost like clay wattle and daub, really. It kind of gives the clay some rigidity in the structure.
To celebrate the site's connection with the city's theatrical heritage, the exposed Elizabethan Playhouse will be preserved in situ and incorporated as part of the new development.
We first arrived this morning, I thought it was a hole in the ground. Had no idea what we were going to find at the bottom of it. This kind of politically charged, irreverent kind of theatre scene where people are out there with their beer mugs. I think that's really exciting to get a feel of it here. After the end of the theatrical phase, you have this industrial thread to this thriving hub of manufacture. And the small finds from this site really bring the place to life for me, right? You've got the tobacco pipes, hundreds of them, the kind of smoky tobacco, and you've got these beer mugs after beer mugs. This must have been such a raucous pace. It's kind of 16th century EastEnders.
For our final dig, we're revisiting an excavation first filmed by Digging for Britain in 2017. Back then, MOD archaeologists were called in to investigate a small island in Portsmouth Harbour where human bones were eroding out of a cliff. The team discovered 4 sets of human remains, including a skull that had been sawn open.
Got a craniotomy here, so if you can see this cut through the skull.
This year, MOD archaeologist Richard Osgood is back because storms have eroded the cliff face, causing more bones to emerge.
We've got at the moment, I think, 3 or 4 areas of interest that got human remains, and we've got only about 3 or 4 days to get them out.
The dig takes place on Burrow Island, which lies just opposite Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. Richard's filming his dig diary with members of Operation Nightingale. This is a military initiative using archaeology to help the recovery of service personnel injured in conflict.
So here we've got a tibia and a fibula just coming in, going into the side of the cliff there.
That's one lower leg, is it?
Yes.
Is there
that's
just
right.
one that you can see at the moment?
We think we've got the second one just coming through here.
The burials are believed to date from the early 1800s, the late Georgian era. At this time, floating jails called prison hulks were moored in the nearby harbour. These were home to convicts and prisoners of war. The author Charles Dickens grew up in Portsmouth and he knew about these prison ships. It's believed the inmates could have inspired the character of Abel Magwitch, the escaped convict in Great Expectations. Back at the dig, artefacts are emerging that help confirm the date of the graves.
One of the burials, which had just a few bones within it, also produced this really lovely pipe bowl. This is really a date of about early 19th century. It's a good fix for what we're doing on the site.
But as the dig continues, the team make an unsettling discovery. They're finding more graves extending right up the cliff face, far higher than originally recorded.
We're cleaning up the cliff, And perhaps that was an error, because when we've cleaned up the face, there are even more coffins that are being exposed.
This is a new revelation. The burials are stacked one on top of another. The large number of graves suggests that the island was being used as a burial site over many years, longer than previously thought.
So you've got a nice clear coffin that's cutting through this area of the site, but you've got bones either side of it. And what that shows is they've come across an earlier burial and dug it out to put the new coffin in. So this set of human remains is an earlier burial, at least 2 phases of burial here, and it just shows the sheer level of activity of burial on the island.
With the dig coming to a close, the bones are taken away for further analysis. But the plan is that in the future, all the skeletons will be reburied on the island, but on the top, safely away from the eroding cliff edges. I've asked Richard to bring in some of the human remains recovered this year, including one very unusual find.
It's one of the coffins that we saw this year. Actually, there were some other bones that were found as part of that assemblage.
We're still looking at human bones here, but absolutely minute human bones, so an infant. Is that unusual? Have you found any infant remains before on Rutland Island?
This is the first time we found something like this, and in many ways that changes our understanding, maybe our picture of what's going on. Does it mean that there's a female convict who went on whilst pregnant, gave birth, and the infant died? Was she incarcerated with an infant? I don't know, but this changes our whole narrative of the site because it's so much younger than anything else.
It's very sad to think about. If it is a female convict with her baby on board one of those prison hulks, there must have been a horrendous place to be. So these are skeletons that have just emerged this year, and there's quite a bit more work still to do on them. But you've been able to advance some of that process with skeletons that have emerged in previous years.
That's right, and I've brought one of them in.
I've seen this one before.
You have seen this one before, but we've got a lot more about this man's story from when he was here last. He's been subjected to some fairly rudimentary early autopsy work.
Yeah.
We've been able to get a company to do a facial reconstruction of him, and you've got it there.
You've brought that along, haven't you? We can see him there. And then if we put the flesh back on the bones, that's what he might have looked like. It's quite strange, isn't it, to see, a face brought back to life in that way.
It's astonishing. It's so realistic, isn't it?
It's quite haunting.
I'd like to think he'd be pleased that we remembered his story and are still telling a bit more about him some 200 years after his demise.
The south of Britain has yielded up a rich diversity of archaeological finds spanning 10,000 years of history. We've travelled back to an ancient Stone Age settlement, marvelled at a Roman trading post, and trodden the boards of an Elizabethan theatre. Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy. Wow. And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw.
Wanna come and have a look?
That is the epic story of our islands. It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country. Oh my goodness. There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's, what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio.
Splash away. You can see that this object has had a life of its own.
For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail. Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time, we're in the Midlands for the latest archaeological discoveries.
In a Digging for Britain exclusive, we uncover a truly spectacular ancient sea monster.
This could be one of the biggest finds ever in the UK.
An exquisite key handle reveals the bloodthirst of the Romans.
The children are next on the list after the lion has dispatched this barbarian.
So quite a gruesome subject, actually.
Absolutely.
And an early medieval graveyard shines light on the Dark Ages.
This is an indication of how we've got British history wrong.
From Goodrich Castle to Lincoln Cathedral, the Midlands is strewn with landmarks that tell of its long history. But many parts of this region's story remain hidden beneath the soil. Our first dig is just 3 miles from the centre of one of the Midlands' oldest cities, Leicester.
This hill near Leicester is part of a beautiful country park, much beloved of dog walkers. And the bank I've just walked up was once thought to be part of an Iron Age hill fort. It was thought to be, not anymore.
Here in Castle Hill Park, for the very first time, archaeologists are investigating what looks like a settlement, surrounded by a huge bank and ditch. They want to find out how old this monument really is and who might have lived here.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Alice. Welcome to Castle Hill.
Well, you've got stuck in already.
Indeed.
Matthew Morris from Leicester University is leading the 3rd year of this excavation.
So you're the first archaeologist to actually
very
look on
first
this hill.
archaeologist ever to look on this hill.
And you've been here for a few years. What have you been discovering about it?
This site is rather enigmatic because it's, for 60-odd years, it was a sewage farm between the 1890s and the 1960s. And so no one's ever looked at this site before.
The whole hillside was covered in
we've got this
sewage
fantastic photograph of it from the 1960s, and you can see the earthwork really clearly outlined.
Yes.
And you can sort of understand why people pre-sewage farm thought it might have been an Iron Age hill fort.
But they're quite substantial earthworks,
Really
aren't they?
substantial earthworks, but then you can see all of these channels cut across it, which are all the sewage channels. And reputedly, it was not a great place to walk around or explore.
I can see why archaeologists weren't that keen to come and excavate it previously.
Absolutely.
But the sewage is long since gone, and now you can safely dig here and get to the bottom of what this Castle Hill is really about.
Absolutely.
To find out what was built here, Matthew is looking first at the bank and ditch surrounding the site. This image, created using a laser scanning technique known as LiDAR, reveals the shape of the enclosure ditch hidden in the landscape. And now a trench has been dug, creating a cross-section to search for clues as to when it was built.
So this is the northern bank and ditch of the main enclosure.
Oh, so that ditch, when you get down into it, is really deep.
It's really deep and pretty wide as well. So this is a excessively large monument. You can see why people thought this was a hill fort.
So you're convinced now that this isn't prehistoric?
Absolutely, yeah. We're 100% convinced that this is an Iron Age.
So what evidence have you got to prove that to me, Matt?
So from the bank itself, we've got Roman pottery.
Ah, OK.
So this is a bit of Roman greyware.
So Romans come after Iron Age, so Iron Age people can't be creating a bank here with Roman pottery in it.
No, but even better, from the soil layer beneath the bank, we've had these 3 very grotty little bits of medieval pottery.
They're very grotty.
They're very grotty, yeah. Very characteristic of what you'd find in medieval plough soil.
So if there's medieval pottery underneath this bank, there's no way it could have got there.
In the Iron Age.
In the Iron Age.
Yeah, it has to have been dug in the medieval period and built in the medieval period.
Brilliant. So then there's another mystery. Who is here? Why are they converting this hilltop into what looks like a defensive bank and ditch? Why would you want to defend this hilltop?
So we've got a late 13th century document that tells us that in around about 1240, the 6th Earl of Leicester, Simon de Montfort, gives this area to the Knights Hospitaller.
Ah, so now we've got a link with the Crusades then.
And
so the Knights Hospitaller were here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Knights Hospitaller were established in Jerusalem around 1100, after the city was captured by Christians during the First Crusade. The Crusades to the Holy Land were a series of religious wars between Christians and the Islamic Caliphate. The mission of these knights was to protect and support a hospital in Jerusalem which cared for Christian pilgrims. As conflict with the Islamic Empire intensified, the knights became more militaristic, defending Christian interest in the Holy Land. But what possible connection has this got to a hilltop in Leicester? As the dig progresses, the team uncover more clues that could link this site with these famous knights.
We came across a number of bones just lying on the surface. We've got a mixture of different animals, cattle, sheep, some perhaps dog.
We've had this come out of it, which is a tiny little medieval silver penny. It's been deliberately cut in half to make it a half penny, and that would probably put it in around about the late 12th century or up to the mid 13th century in date.
The archaeology is revealing a site that is far grander than a peasant farm.
So this is the key trench in understanding what is actually going on up here. So the pile of stones we're walking on now, this sort of flat pebbled surface, is actually the yard surface surrounding a building. It's huge, it's 8 metres wide, it's at least 15 metres in length, if not longer than that as well. Possibly has other buildings stretching off to it from the west in that direction.
Yeah.
So it's part of a complex.
And is this a building that people would have lived in?
It does have the sense that it is a fortified manor house, perhaps, or certainly a defended enclosure. It might be the manor house itself, the main house.
But why are they here? Why are they here on a hilltop in Leicestershire?
This is a manor site, effectively a large farm generating income for them that will support their military and charitable activities back in the Holy Land.
So the Knights Hospitaller are farming here. That doesn't explain why they've had to create these defences around the hilltop, though.
The location might be the clue. So the top of this hill here is Leicester Forest, and then going north from us is Charnwood Forest, and then beyond that is Sherwood Forest. And so we're in that fringe of very heavily wooded Midlands that is sort of well known for its bandits and outlaws.
So the Knights Hospitaller are farming here, surrounded by bandit country, and they essentially have to create almost a castle on top of this hill.
Yeah, which of course the name is a bit of a clue in that respect, Castle Hill.
This is the age of wild woods and outlaws, which inspired local legends like Robin Hood. And this profitable manor house didn't hide its wealth. And it's a well-off farm, isn't it?
It is. When you look at the building material, again, it's using the local granite. We've talked about the slate roof, and the top of the roof would have been capped with glazed ridge tiles that would have had all of these lovely little decorative crests on them.
That's really lovely. So you've got this lovely slate roof topped with
glazed ridge tiles with these
tiles.
little decorative finials along the top of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really quite ornate. It's
very ornate. It's bright green glazed on top of a blue roof.
So, you know, we're not just looking at a series of barns or hovels up here, are we? This is something quite posh, actually. That's lovely. That's really nice. The evidence suggests the buildings would have looked like this. An imposing manor commanding the hilltop over this wild medieval landscape. Some of the artefacts found reveal fascinating details about life here at the height of the Knights' occupation. Matt has put together a selection so that I can get a closer look. this lump of something? What's that?
So this is iron hearth slag. So this is one we've sawn in half so you can see the cross-section. So this is all the waste that's sort of settled to the base of the hearth, the smith's fire.
Yeah. Is this something you would expect to find on a manor and a farm?
It's a working estate centre, so you're going to need every sort of function of that. And when you can't pop over to the shops, you're going to need a blacksmith on site to do all those needed repairs you've got on any metalwork. You've got wheels, horseshoes, maybe even make tools like this knife blade that's come
that's
up.
lovely. So finding evidence of smithing on site doesn't destroy your idea that this is a manor and a farm?
Oh no, absolutely. It's one of those many activities that you would expect to find on a working medieval estate centre.
Yeah. And then what about this pottery? You've got more of this green glaze here.
So these are the things that would be on the table during dining.
Yeah. And
But
is it high status?
It is. It elevates it above just a simple peasant's farm. This is the sort of stuff you'd expect on a much more elevated site, like a Knights Hospitaller site.
Yeah.
So they would give hospitality. Anyone staying, travelling through could stop and spend the night here.
Yeah.
So they do really live up to that element of their name, even though they are a military order.
The archaeology here paints a picture of the knights successfully managing and defending their farm, which would generate income to support their campaigns in the Holy Land. Matt believes he's also found clues as to what eventually happened to the manor farm here at Castle Hill. And then what about the roof of it?
So the roof, we can see all these big piles of blue slates, the remains of the roof. They're all smashed roof slates that have been left piled up on the site because they're all broken and have been discarded.
So are we looking at a building that was demolished then?
Yes, definitely demolished. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a long period of neglect with the building crumbling away.
Now that Matt and his team are sure that they have found this incredible historic building, he can refer to local records to find out why it was demolished.
We know they're here from 1240 to 1483, at which point they do a land swap with Edward IV for a site in Lincolnshire, and after that, effectively, it goes back to farmland again.
So it's a really short-lived site.
Absolutely, it's really only active for a couple of hundred years, and the pottery really supports that. There's no 11th, 12th century pottery, there's no 15th, 16th, 17th century pottery coming out, it's just 13th, 14th century, which is the period that they hold it.
I love this mystery that you've got to the bottom of, thinking, is it an Iron Age hill fort to begin with? It looks like it might be with this impressive bank and ditch running around it. And then actually finding a much more interesting story, I think, underlying that.
It's not an excavation where we've left with a massive question mark at the end of it. We've actually got a good idea now of what's going on the site.
And a really rare glimpse of the Knights Hospitaller.
Really rare. There's not many of these sites that have ever been excavated in England. Knights Hospitaller or Knights Templar for that matter. So this excavation is actually hopefully going to redress that.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, what a mystery to have solved.
Oh, absolutely. It's been great fun doing this.
This site is just extraordinary, and I am fairly sure that if it hadn't been for the sewage farm here, that this archaeology would just not have survived. It would have disappeared long ago under development, under a housing estate. But here we are, peeling back this layer of soil, and we can see this incredibly detailed picture of the Knights Hospitaller up here on Castle Hill. It takes us away from the stereotype, I think, of those fighting monks. Yes, they were raising funds to go on crusades to the Holy Land, but they're also here, they're part of the medieval English landscape. The Midlands boast some truly awe-inspiring landscapes, from the dramatic Peak District to the north and the magnificent Malvern Hills to the west. Spectacular geology that formed up to 700 million years ago. Humans are relative newcomers to the region, but that doesn't mean there's no evidence of life before us.
Lay us down.
Now, Digging for Britain is all about archaeology, but in this series we are making an exception for some paleontology for an exceptionally beautiful fossil. Our next dig takes us to a nature reserve 20 miles west of Leicester, Rutland Water. This is the biggest artificial lake in the country. The reservoir holds over 124 billion litres, providing water to the whole of the East Midlands. But in the winter of 2020, staff here discovered tantalising clues of something spectacular lurking in its depths. They called in paleontologist Dean Lomax from the University of Manchester.
This is a nature reserve and there's lots of animals that live here, but during the wintering months they lower the water levels, and in doing so they've exposed lots of the Jurassic clays which I've stood on here, which you can see behind me. And by doing that, two of the members of staff were walking across the site and they spotted something poking out of the clay. Walked over to it and they found these vertebrae exposed and bits of what looked like pieces of jaw.
Oh nice, this looks like a bit of the snout, yeah. Well, it connects up here though.
Oh, it's such a cool discovery, it really is.
The staff at Rutland Water had stumbled on some extraordinary fossilised bones.
We've marked out, using these wooden sticks, where there's more bone underneath. And for the animal, for the size of this animal, you can work out from the size of the vertebrae and the size of these jaw portions that are exposed. We think the skull might be 1.5 metres, 2 metres, possibly even more. But this is really, really impressive.
Dean and his team are almost certain that this is the fossilised skeleton of an ichthyosaur, an ancient marine reptile that first appeared around 250 million years ago, long before dinosaurs such as Tyrannosaurus rex. Like whales, ichthyosaurs were air-breathing and warm-blooded, giving birth to live young. They could grow huge, almost as big as a blue whale, but they certainly never swam in Rutland Water, which was built in the 1970s.
Usually, you think of ichthyosaurs and other marine reptiles being discovered along the Jurassic coast in Dorset or the Yorkshire coast as well, and where many of those animals are exposed through the constant erosion of the cliffs and the foreshore, whereas here, at an inland location, is very unusual. We're inland, yet these animals lived in a marine setting. They were ocean-dwelling animals.
200 million years ago, the Midlands were part of the seabed under a huge, shallow ocean. The continent was lifting and the sea itself would eventually dry up. Dead marine animals which had lain on the seabed and become entombed in silt would slowly transform into fossils.
It's quite a big animal, and that's one of the really interesting things. Potentially, this could be one of the biggest ichthyosaur finds ever in the UK, as a skeleton as well.
Unlike fossils encased in hard rock, this soft mudstone will allow for quick excavation.
What do you want to take it to, the blue post? Because
the furthest bit of the skull.
And an early chance for the team to measure it.
OK, you take it along the...
OK, let me get in closer. Place your bets.
9.5.
9.5. Yeah, I mean, here it's a case we just continue across.
Yeah.
The largest complete ichthyosaur ever found in Britain was discovered in 1857 on the Yorkshire coast and measured approximately 8 metres in length. But this specimen could be far larger.
Yeah, that's 32.4 feet. Yeah. So metres wise, 9.8, almost 10 metres. So the one in York, I'd have to triple check it. I think this one's bigger.
At nearly 10 metres, this ichthyosaur could be a UK record breaker and therefore of national significance. But it's midwinter, and as this small window of fine weather is set to close, time is running out to rescue it from the mud.
Ideally, the plan today would have been to remove all the material that's exposed. However, we can't run glues in here and we can't remove all of this material carefully enough that we know it's going to be safe. It's definitely not the ideal conditions to collect this right now. So we have to come back later in the year, and that's all part of the fun and games.
As it will soon be fully submerged, the team decide to protect the fossil and return in the summer to complete their mission, to excavate Britain's largest ichthyosaur and preserve it for the nation. We'll join Dean and his team later in the programme to see if they can successfully raise this monster from the deep. The Midlands has always had a strong identity. From the birthplace of manufacturing at the start of the Industrial Revolution, to the ancient Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Mercia 1,000 years earlier. But it's here that history starts to get murky. There is no period in English history that's more hotly contested than that period of time when the Roman army has left, the 5th, 6th centuries, the so-called Dark Ages, when later historians tell us that boatloads of Germanic tribes were arriving in the east of England. Now, archaeologists have called that history into question, but it will be a long time before we know more about who those people really were. But archaeology can shed light on the richness and complexity of their culture, as we see in this next dig. We travel to the city with the second oldest university in the country, Cambridge. From its founding in 1209, the history of Cambridge University, the city and its people are well documented, but go back another 7 centuries and much less is known about the people who lived here. Because we have so little written evidence from the time, Britain after Roman rule is largely a historical void. But in the summer of 2020, workers on a building site for King's College started finding skeletons that might help change that view. They called in the archaeologists.
Is that a good one, Archie? Is it big?
Who filmed themselves on our Dig Diary cameras.
Sounds a good one. That's singing for joy. My goodness me. I don't think there'll be any room for a body.
Supervising the team from Albion Archaeology is Ernie Rizzo.
And we have an Anglo-Saxon cemetery, which is something we don't usually work on. It's one of those things we tend to get excited about because they're so rare. So the fact that we've had the opportunity to work on this cemetery is fantastic.
In all, the team have uncovered 70 burials, all dating from this post-Roman period.
Because we have a decent amount of burials, we can really establish whether these people are actually immigrants who've come over or if they are people who've just taken on the culture. So much of what we know of, especially early Saxon, the transition from Roman into Saxon, whether these people were migrants or whether they were just Britons who had adapted from Roman and then assimilated into Saxon. And the lack of sight to interpret that means that something like this is really important.
It looks like it could be a spearhead. We've had a couple of burials on site that have had these spears packed in next to them.
Whether these were items that were associated with the people being buried or whether they were offerings from relatives, we're not quite sure, but there's a strong tradition of placing the bodies into the graves with belongings.
Many of these burials included grave goods, a common practice for early Anglo-Saxons. These artefacts provide tantalising clues about the lives of their owners.
There are a couple of brooches. One here, and there's another one there. And not only are there 3 brooches, there's more and more beads coming out.
She might have been wearing a belt. We've got a small knife and a belt loop, or that could be a ring. Quite a rich and involved burial, which is nice.
So far, these artefacts are typical of Anglo-Saxon communities in the early medieval period.
So Irena's just lifted a really nice find, but we're not sure what it is.
Irena's beautiful glass object is a very unusual discovery.
Honestly,
At the first sight, we thought it was pretty modern, maybe Victorian, but then after cleaning it a bit and considering it was close to a Roman coin.
Wow.
And potentially, I think this could have been a high-status burial, possibly.
The team believe that this is a Roman barrel flask, perhaps used to store perfume, which could have been made hundreds of years before it was eventually placed in this grave. It's a cultural link between Roman Britain and these early Anglo-Saxons.
Lovely.
Towards the end of the excavation, the team begin to unearth another stunning object.
Copper alloy object with what looks like gold inlay. We've got two brooches on either shoulder and a little amber bead here. And then this in the middle, which might be a pendant.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Something like that.
Wow.
So that's really, really cool.
The position of the brooch on the chest suggests this person was buried wearing a cloak.
Okay, Mike, are we ready to lift? Let's have a closer look at this brooch. Amazing detail.
Absolutely lovely.
The brooch is stunning, but it's what's on the back of it that could tell us even more about the people that lived here. Traces of the cloak itself, fabric buried 1,500 years ago.
There it is.
This evidence of Anglo-Saxon textiles offers experts an incredibly rare chance to learn more about the people that wore them and made them. Historian Onyeka Nubia has come to see that analysis in action.
Sometimes the investigation of a small item can give birth to a new understanding and help us to reshape our thinking of Britain and of British history.
Helping me decipher any clues in the remnants of the fabric is early medieval textile specialist Sue Harrington.
So these are the most important objects discovered at the Croft Gardens burial ground.
Yes, indeed. This is a copper alloy cruciform brooch.
Wow, it's just incredible because it's so well preserved.
Yes, it is, isn't it? But we turn this over.
Ah, so is that the textile that's the brooch was attached to?
Yes and no. If you look carefully there, you can see not the actual fibres, but you can see it in a mineralised form, which is how it preserves in contact with metal. The brooch was actually attached to this textile. You can see it almost, it's wound round the pin.
Well, I can actually see the texture
Yeah.
of the weave even from here. And it's
Yeah.
what, 1,600 years old?
Probably about 475 AD.
Wow.
Sue's deep knowledge of these textiles means we can better understand the cultures that made and wore them in 5th and 6th century Cambridge.
What we've got here is something called a ZZ22 twill.
Okay, what's that?
ZZ means that the spin direction is in the shape of a Z. It's the sort of cloth that your jeans are made of, denim. That's a twill. Right. And if you look very closely at that, you'll see the same sort of ziggy-zaggy pattern.
So the weave of the wool, can we tell anything more about where it was woven?
In 6th, 7th century, cloth production was still ongoing in the Byzantine world, in the Eastern Empire. And possibly there was trade. Trade, we know, comes up through the Rhineland, around the North Sea. This is the sort of cloth that would have been traded around the North Sea. But my sense from this particular piece is that it's probably locally produced.
Right.
Sue thinks this quite sophisticated weave was traded among the cultures across Northern Europe, including Scandinavia.
I have this one here, which I'll show you.
Astonishing that you can glean this fact from something as simple as fragments of residual fabric.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But another brooch tells us a different story.
This is from the grave of a woman who's slightly younger, 20 to 30 at age of death. This is what's known as a tabby, or a plain weave. It's essentially a thread going over one, under one, over one, under one, in both directions. but you can see from this is quite a fine piece of fabric, much finer than the twill we were looking at.
So we've seen now that there's at least 2 different types of weave. Does this mean that there are 2 types of weaving cultures? 2 different types of people doing weaving?
Well, it depends whether you're weaving for yourself or you're weaving for your community, but the amount of labour required would mean perhaps input of dedicated labour, such as slaves, to do this. I mean, there is an inference that Roman-type craft traditions continued in certain areas of the country.
So you just said something really intriguing. You said that there is a continuation of Roman tradition into the 5th century when this artifact is dated, and that's really, really important because a lot of people say that when 410 happens, everything Roman stops.
Yeah.
And then a whole new set of culture happens.
Yeah.
And this artifact is clearly showing that that's not the case.
Whether Roman traditions continued is a possibility. Whether new traditions came in is also a possibility, and how they all mix together is the answer.
The mixture of fabrics found in these graves reflects the blending of cultural influences on the people buried there.
This is, in many ways, an indication of how we've got British history wrong. Because we speak about British history with a series of sentences and full stops. But it is not like that. It's a series of commas, half sentences and question marks.
Yes.
When I was looking at those grave goods with Sue, I began to understand the importance of history working with archaeology. Here we were looking at small items, textiles, little bits of material, and yet it provided a window that helped me understand the rich tapestry of this period that people call the Dark Ages. I discovered that it's not particularly dark at all.
The Romans created our earliest written sources about the Midlands, but they did far more than just leave records. Hundreds of their ruins dot the landscape, like Roxeter, once one of the largest towns in Britain. And even our modern cities still hide Roman secrets. Large excavations in our towns and cities give us the opportunity to see how these places that we're so familiar with have evolved through time. But sometimes it's the smallest of finds, objects which just fit in the palm of the hand, that give us the most astonishing glimpse of cultures long forgotten, as we see in our next story. We return to Leicester and a dig that actually happened more than 4 years ago, in the heart of the city centre. Back in 2017, clearance was underway for a large new development, and a team from University of Leicester Archaeological Services had a unique opportunity to fully excavate this area. The archaeologists filmed all of their work on small handheld cameras, not realising what treasure they were about to discover. Leicester was an Iron Age settlement which became a major Roman town in the 1st century, but what the team uncovered was truly astonishing. They unearthed 2 ancient Roman streets and 2 incredibly well-preserved houses full of mosaics dating back to 250 AD. One mosaic was more than 10 metres long, and what's more, the room it was in had underfloor heating. This grand townhouse in the centre of Roman Leicester clearly belonged to one of the city's most important citizens. But as the dig progressed, it's one of the smallest discoveries found buried in the floor that stunned archaeologists.
Maybe the body here, the arm around this one. Hand there and arm. They're like almost cartoon, sort of, like big hands.
In the 4 years since its discovery, painstaking conservation has restored this intricate piece of metalwork to its former glory. Gavin Speed and Nick Cooper are at the Digging for Britain tent to share what they've learned about this object and the amazing site where it was found. So that's what Leicester would have looked like, what, in the 3rd, 4th century?
That's right, yes. This is a brand new reconstruction we've done based on all our excavation results and gives us a good view of Roman Leicester in the 3rd century. You can see the forum and the main market buildings over here, and possibly the new theatre under construction in the early 3rd century. And the site itself occupies this very large townhouse, and it had multiple rooms. Some of the rooms were heated.
So whoever it was that lived in that house must have been fairly wealthy to live in such an opulent townhouse right in the centre.
Yeah, we found a variety of objects within the townhouse itself and also in rubbish dumps nearby.
And this was the key find, the star find, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Can I pick it up?
Yeah, shall I?
Talk me through it.
So this is a Roman key handle. And
it's quite heavy.
It is.
Yeah. Is it a bronze object?
Yes, it's cast bronze. Would have originally had an iron key coming out of it, but that's been lost. And then you're left with the decorative handle itself, which if you put it in the palm of your hand, it feels really nice. This is a really high status, a bespoke product. We've never seen anything like it before.
Really?
There's not another one like it, certainly not in Britain.
It is so sculptural. It's just full of figures that are all wrapped around each other. It's quite difficult when you first look at it, isn't it,
Yes.
to work out what's going on. But I think I've spotted 4 boys at the bottom here, almost like little cherubs. And standing on their heads is this man who seems to be fighting with a lion.
Yes, there's definitely a protective element amongst the group of boys.
So the boys are all naked. The man at the top is wearing trousers. He's got a big, thick belt on as well. And he's being mauled by this lion, which is coming around here. He's grappling with it. And this character has got long, flowing hair. He's got a beard. Who is he then?
Well, I think he's a representation of a barbarian, anybody who is not within the Roman Empire.
So somebody from beyond the bounds of the empire, somebody who is uncivilized.
Yeah.
Do you think this is representing a wild scene? Is this a barbarian fighting with a wild lion? Or are we looking at a depiction of something which might have happened in an amphitheatre?
Well, that's our take on it, that it's a depiction of damnatio ad bestias, which is the lawful killing of convicts and particularly prisoners of war in the amphitheatre by setting wild animals on them. In this case, I think we're seeing a barbarian attacked by a lion, and the children of the tribe are next on the list after the lion has dispatched this barbarian.
So quite a gruesome subject, actually.
Absolutely.
And it's obviously had a life beyond being a key handle, because the key's long gone, and then it seems to have ended up in the ground just as a sculpture in its own right, really.
Yeah. The depiction, that the idea of having the lion particularly is a symbol of security and is used as a way of warding off evil spirits, and so a key would be a fitting thing. But what appears to be is that it's buried much later on under a floor of a later phase of the building, long beyond its heyday, that perhaps it still held some power there and was symbolically placed in the floor.
You don't think it was just lost?
There's not any other rubbish in that floor layer. It's there and it was stood upright originally in the substrate, so it's not a rubbish deposit in that sense. So it's something that's been purposely placed under a new floor.
If the key handle is evidence of the famous Roman thirst for blood, another spectacular discovery shows a far more refined side. Almost looks like a hand sitting there on the table. Can I pick that up?
Yes.
What is it?
Well, it's a very ornate toilet set, you know, what you think of as a manicure set, if you like.
Ah, yes.
Usually they're very workaday. You know, you'd have a pair of tweezers, a nail cleaner, an ear scoop in there. But this is another sort of bespoke item. It's got lovely enamelling.
That is gorgeous. I can even see the colours of that. There's a stripe of green, then blue, then green again, of enamel. And this looks like a little file.
Yes, it's even got a little serrated edge there.
Yeah.
There are only 2 other complete ones. There's one from London and one from Castleford in Yorkshire. They're the only 2 complete ones. So these aren't workaday items. These are prestige bits of jewellery.
You quite often get individual tweezers, ear scoops, that kind of thing. but it's unusual to have them all assembled.
So yes, it does make you think about who owned this. You know, if we look at any of the other jewellery that we've got, you know, we really are in the top drawer of material.
So we are looking at the upper echelons of society in Roman Leicester.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I think what's absolutely fascinating is that in the centre of that town, somebody owns this key handle with an image of a barbarian being attacked by a lion, and the ancestors of these people presumably were barbarians at some point, and then they've become fully Romanised. It just looked like such an incredible dig and a real opportunity to dig right in the centre of Leicester and get down to those Roman levels. That must have been extraordinary.
It certainly was, yes. It was an amazing opportunity to excavate in such a large area as well, to really get a good understanding of the Roman past of the city.
Next, we're back at Rutland Water. In the summer of 2021, Dean Lomax and his team return to the ancient fossil of what might be a record-breaking ichthyosaur. It's a rescue mission that will require all the experience of Dean's team to succeed.
To get involved in a dig like this, it's such a privilege to be here, and potentially it could be a career-defining moment to see what we uncover here.
9 months after the original dig had to be abandoned, the summer sun has dried out the 200-million-year-old Jurassic sediment, but the clock is still ticking on excavating this monster find.
It's at a point where there's no way that it can stay in the ground for another winter. And already a lot of the material is very, very crumbly, and some of this, if we left it any longer, it was like poof, it'll be gone. We don't want that.
With the evidence now much clearer, the team can expose the complete fossil, and it is truly enormous. Now, forensic details of what happened after this ancient animal died are becoming clearer.
Now, this very scientific, accurate model, or thereabouts, this one in particular is very, very interesting for multiple reasons, but we think when this animal died, bloated and floated, it would have been picked up by scavengers, and eventually, over time, the carcass would have drifted and nosedived to the bottom of the seabed, where what we think is the skull would have landed obviously first, which is why we think the vertebral column is quite disarticulated, and then you've had other animals scavenging on it as well.
Examining the fossil carefully in situ, Dean reconstructs a brutal scene from 200 million years ago in the ocean that once covered the British Isles.
This is the left hind fin that is beautifully preserved. There's a bit of a mystery here because this is the leading edge. You see these little notches here. That should be pointing in this direction. So I'm trying to work out exactly what's going on. Potentially, it might be that some scavenger or a predator has been in here and tugging away at the fin. But then also, if you look at the vertebral column, it's fully articulated here, and then there's a sudden angular change. So potentially, what's going on here, you've had another animal tugging away, and it's pulled the entire carcass to the side and ripped off part of the hind fin. So pretty gnarly, and more ichthyosaur CSI required, I think.
The largest ichthyosaurs, like this one, were apex predators of the oceans. So whatever tore this monster's body apart would need very powerful jaws. Right next to the fin, the perpetrator left a calling card, and Dean's hunch is proved right.
We found a tooth.
Yeah, so we decided to start clearing some of this in the hope that we would find another tooth. And then there you go, we spotted one. So you can see a bit of the enamel at the top there.
Very, very cool. So we found this tooth. What this means is that we had another ichthyosaur, another large apex predator, scavenging on this portion of the tail, and it's lost a tooth in the process. It tells us more about the behavior of these animals, other ones actually feeding on this piece. It shows that not only is it scavenging, because it's another ichthyosaur tooth, it shows that these are also cannibalistic.
With every new bone exposed, the team learn more about these fantastic beasts. But the largest part of the ichthyosaur is keeping its secrets well hidden.
This is the beautiful, massive skull, but we're looking at the underside of the skull, so we're not going to see the eyes here, whereas in fact what we're seeing is parts of what we call the palatal bones in here, parts of the brain case as well, so from underneath, potentially you'd find a piece with what actually was inside the eyeball called the sclerotic ring. They would be buried underneath here, but we're unsure at the moment whether the skull is sort of pancaked flat, as if it's like Jurassic roadkill, or is it a fact that it's still three-dimensional? It's really hard to tell until we actually dig a trench around this and dig deep down by at least a foot or more and get underneath.
Only when it's back in the laboratory can the skull be analysed properly. The team dig a deep pit all around it so they can remove it as one.
We're going to have 6 or 7 beams going widthwise underneath this, and we're going to screw them all together. Lift up those beams, which will lift the entire block nice and neatly, hopefully.
The wooden frame supports the skull, which is now encased in plaster of Paris and weighs in at around a ton. Even though there's help with the lift, it's a nail-biting procedure.
Right, very gently back. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic job, Nigel.
Good to see it out of the ground in one piece for now, and on the back of the trailer.
Brilliant.
Confirmed at 10.5 metres long from nose to tail, this fantastic find is officially the largest complete ichthyosaur fossil ever found in Britain. Moving 200 million years on from the age of sea monsters. Modern humans arrived in Britain some 40,000 years ago. They were Stone Age hunter-gatherers. 6,000 years ago, farmers arrived. Then came the Bronze Age. And the final prehistoric culture of Britain was the Iron Age. Our next dig takes us to the heart of the Midlands, 25 miles south of Coventry, near a farm called Blackgrounds. The site was identified as an area of interest by archaeologists working on HS2. But when they actually surveyed the area, its scale exceeded their wildest expectations.
Now, there was a Roman villa known about, which was over where that large tree is, just beyond the horses, but it was thought to be isolated in the landscape until the geophysical survey was carried out, at which point the archaeologists realised they were going to have to excavate a huge area, some 14 hectares, that's about 35 football pitches.
The sheer size of the site is extraordinary, but it could also answer some equally big questions about a period of great change in British history. Britain was inhabited by groups of Iron Age people when the Romans arrived in 43 AD. The clash between the newly arrived and existing cultures was sometimes violent, and we often find Roman forts built directly on top of older Iron Age sites. But here at Blackgrounds, there's something different. Nick Finch is project archaeologist for HS2.
Nick, what did you find then when you started looking at the geophysical surveys before you started digging?
We've got the Roman villa complex, which is this dark material in the south, which, as you can see, is quite significant. And then we've undertaken further archaeological survey to the north, which identified to be an Iron Age sort of village complex. You can see here, with all the Iron Age roundhouses and anomalies, you can see them all pocketed along, really.
Lots of circles.
Lots of circles.
It appears that this Iron Age village is abandoned soon after the Roman invasion. And just a quarter of a mile down the hill, a new settlement grows up in its place. Instead of roundhouses, there are impressive foundations and walls of stone buildings, evidence of water wells, industry, and a large road. But no military presence. It seems most likely that the people living here are still the locals, now embracing a Roman way of life. And some of the objects the dig team have found could help explain why, as molar archaeologist Matt Smith explains.
This tray holds Iron Age pottery that we've recovered from the roundhouses towards the northern end of the site, and this stuff is mostly chunky, locally made pottery full of shelly inclusions, and it's quite thick and ugly and utilitarian.
It does the job, though.
It does, yes. It's not something that you've got on your shelf for looking at. It's something that you're cooking in, storing things in. But what we see later on is the incorporation of the Roman pottery. It gets introduced, like the Samian.
This much more refined pottery was found in the later Roman period settlement.
So this is made in, well, what is now France, isn't it?
It is, yes, and that just shows that we have a very high status settlement here as well.
And this is just the base of what presumably was quite a nice bowl.
Yes, and it really is wealthy individuals who can afford to have a whole sort of dinner service of Samian pottery.
Yeah.
More utilitarian stuff from the Roman period. We have this large sherd of what's probably an amphora, so that'd be a storage vessel, most likely, that would have held wine or olives or olive oil, something like that.
So they're enjoying the luxuries of the Roman Empire here?
They absolutely are, yes.
I think these changes in lifestyle are really interesting, that people are, they're aspiring to having these Roman things.
Absolutely. It's reflected in the settlement itself, and it's almost certainly the case that the Iron Age people will have aspired to upgrade their roundhouses into solid stone Roman structures. And yeah, I don't think we're necessarily seeing Romans moving in. I think we're just seeing the Iron Age peoples adopting the Roman culture that is very appealing to them, really.
Yeah, suddenly a roundhouse feels a bit old-fashioned.
It does, absolutely.
Over the next few weeks, the team continue to uncover more evidence of the transition from the Iron Age into Roman Britain. Molar find specialist Owen Humphreys has brought some of the artefacts into the Digging for Britain tent for me to look at.
Take me through some of these finds then and what they tell us about what was happening at the site. What's this one, first of all?
This is what we call a Colchester type brooch. Its distinctive feature is this little hook at the top that holds the spring in place, and then this perforation on the catch plate that tells us when it dates to. Made exclusively in Britain and widely used in southeastern England from the 1st century BC into the early Roman periods, tying to that broader local Iron Age culture. One of the fascinating things about this one is that you notice that it's green because it's copper alloy, but around the spring there's lots of red iron staining. So that
it looks rusty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that shows us that the pin at one point, which was originally copper alloy, has been replaced with one made of iron. That's a repair that shows that this object was kept and used over a long period of time, so maybe used even into the Roman period as a sort of heirloom piece.
That's just brilliant. So real kind of detective work, and you can see that this object has had a life of its own, and you can see that it's been repaired. And
absolutely. The story of the site really is that it's not looking like we're seeing a very simple transition between Roman and Iron Age. There's a lot of evidence for continuity and a really complex meshing of cultures rather than a simple conquest and replacement narrative.
It's interesting, isn't it, to think about the experience of those Iron Age people as they become part of the Roman Empire. And obviously in some places there was great resistance to that. Other places down, particularly in the southeast, it was almost welcoming the Romans in. So it's interesting once we get to the kind of middle of the country to work out what was going on there.
Absolutely, and it very much appears that at this site people were happily taking up new Roman ways of life, or aspects of Roman way of life at least. This rather lovely hairpin is a 1st or 2nd century date. Hairpins are basically unknown in Britain during the Iron Age. It's not part of how women styled their hair. But you can find this style of hairpin depicted on statues of imperial women and portraits on mummies in Egypt.
So this is very much a Roman fashion arriving in Britain.
Absolutely, and it would have been very conspicuous. This type of pin relates to a style of hair where you'd have it all built up in a big sort of ball on your head with the pin sticking through it. Very retro 80s looking.
Yeah. Like a beehive almost.
Exactly, and it really would have changed the way people looked.
What about these coins then, Erin? What do they tell us?
So these coins are fascinating because they go all the way through into the 4th century. So we're seeing these settlements last throughout the Roman period. These coins show that occupation at this site was continuing and perhaps even thriving at a time when the empire itself was almost limping along.
History is telling us that story of political turmoil, and perhaps you then get that expectation that that is going to play out right across the landscape of the Roman Empire. And archaeology then gives us a different view of ordinary people's lives.
Absolutely. It's that local experience that is connected to the wider imperial global story, but doesn't follow every one of its beats exactly.
So what's this first one then?
So that first one is a silver denarius of Septimius Severus, emperor originally from North Africa who actually died in Britain. The fascinating thing about that one is...
It's got a little boat on it.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you look surrounding it, you can see that there are creatures and chariots. So what this represents is the Circus Maximus in Rome, flooded to stage mock naval battles.
Yes, yeah.
So even though we're in this quite large rural settlement, still a rural settlement on the province and the fringes of the empire, people are aware of these big Roman cultural events and things happening back in the capital.
Let's have a look at the other side. Is that Septimus himself that we're looking at there,
Yeah,
do you think?
the man himself with his characteristic beard.
I was going to say, he's bearded. Is that unusual for a Roman?
It's something that comes in with Hadrian, especially in the 2nd, 3rd centuries. People start adopting that bearded style.
Oh, so the Romans are picking up barbaric customs as well as the Iron Age
Absolutely.
people picking up Roman customs. I like it. We might be a small island, but we've got a big history. Everywhere you stand, there are worlds beneath your feet. And so every year, hundreds of archaeologists across Britain go looking for more clues. Who lived here, when, and how? You can even see the architecture of the bone inside the jaw there.
Yes.
Archaeology is a complex jigsaw puzzle, drawing together everything from skeletons to swords, temples to treasure. And it's still sharp. From Orkney to Devon, we're joining this year's quest on sea, land and air. We'll share all of the questions and find some of the answers as we join the teams in the field, digging for Britain. The further back in time we go, the more rare those glimpses of our ancestors become. Tonight, we're going into deep prehistory, and this is where archaeology really comes into its own. With no written records, those pieces of evidence that we pull out of the ground are the only clues we have to the mysterious world of prehistoric Britain. I'm on a journey through 1,000,000 years of history that will take me from Orkney to the south coast. I'll be discovering art made by Ice Age Britons.
Is this a leg down here? Is it coming down to a leg?
Yeah, that's right. The leg's here.
And seeing how farming first developed here.
See some more teeth sticking up here. Yeah, yeah.
I'll be finding out how the sea holds clues to the birth of trade. And as we travel through time, we'll see how a culture emerged that still resonates today.
So when was she found?
Our journey begins before Britain was even an island, when a broad river flowed through East Anglia. And this is where archaeologists are trying to find out when the first people arrived in Britain. For over 200 years, archaeologists have searched these lands for signs that early human species may once have lived here. But the first humans to have emerged from Africa were tropical. They just weren't adapted to cold climates, and they could not have survived in Northern Europe. Now, on this beach in Norfolk, archaeologists are finding remarkable evidence that may challenge this belief.
I've been following this project for years, and the archaeologists are about 3 weeks into this year's dig, so I've been really excited about coming here to find out how they've been getting on.
The team are part of an internationally renowned project searching for clues that will help them date this site.
So, Nick, you're a few weeks in.
Nick Ashton of the British Museum is leading the excavation.
And what sort of evidence are you finding in these ancient river sediments?
We're getting pollen from these fine-grained sediments, we're getting wood, we're getting other plant remains, little seeds. Also getting beetles, and they're very good for reconstructing climate. And on top of that, we're getting animal remains, animal bones and teeth, and they really help with the dating of the site.
To retrieve that evidence, every bucket load excavated must be painstakingly examined.
So it's all happening down here. What have you got for us, Sophie? Nothing at the moment.
Not much.
It wasn't some dirt.
Oh, wow. Some pebbles.
Some pebbles at the moment, so each sieve load is checked and sorted, and there doesn't appear to be anything in that.
Over a 5-year period, they've sifted through 70 tonnes of sediment. But sometimes it's the most unlikely finds that provide vital clues.
Oh no, pine cones.
Ah, oh right. And there, it's quite a weathered but surviving pine cone.
Really?
Or part of one, yeah. You could look at the structure of that and confirm the exact species.
When you're looking this far back in time, even a single find like this pine cone core is crucial. Find by find, the archaeologists can reconstruct this mysterious lost world. A pine forest that was inhabited by creatures no longer seen in Britain. Simon Parfitt from the Natural History Museum is an expert on prehistoric mammals.
And what's that in that box down there?
Okay, this thing is
it looks like a
incredible.
stone.
It looks like a stone. Believe it or not, it's a hyena dropping. This is fossilised hyena poo.
So we know there were a hyena here as well.
There are hyenas, so you've got large carnivores. We've got this fantastic rodent, jaw, with some of the teeth. And this is an extinct beaver-like rodent, and it was semi-aquatic, living along the banks of the river.
It's such a beautifully preserved fossil. I mean, you can even see the architecture of the bone inside the jaw there.
Yes, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
It's because we know when each of these species became extinct that these fossils are helping us to date the site.
This is a tooth of a mammoth, and this is in fact one of the earliest forms of mammoth that we find in this part of the world. This helps us with the date because this is quite primitive, so we have a fantastic record.
You can tell that from the teeth.
That's right, yeah, it has very distinctive teeth. You can see this is the chewing surface, and you have a series of plates, and they're very widely spaced, and this is a feature of primitive mammoths. Later mammoths, the plates tend to get closer together, the enamel gets thinner, so that's one of the features we can use to identify it.
This tooth belonged to a type of mammoth that died out over 700,000 years ago. So its position in these sediments gives another vital clue to the archaeologists.
With the various types of dating, we're able to say that the site dates somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million years old.
So that's the date of those sediments that we're looking at in the trench, between 800,000 and 1 million years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. This project really is unique. So many important discoveries are made by pure chance, especially in prehistory, where something might be found in a quarry or when a road is being built. But here the archaeologists have set out to find something new, to make an important discovery, and they've done it.
Because what's being found here are not just animal and plant finds. It's not just evidence of a vanished landscape from perhaps 1 million years ago. There are finds suggesting humans could have lived here then too.
Actually, today we recovered one of the rare artefacts that we're also getting from the site, and this is really exciting because it shows that humans were living here at that time.
This is just coming out today?
This is a small flake, it's slightly broken, but you can see all the tell signs of human manufacture.
This tiny object is a waste flake left over from making flint tools. So this is evidence of humans in Britain going back possibly 1 million years.
Yeah, and so it makes it by a long way the oldest site in Northern Europe, the oldest human site in Northern Europe.
So I'm holding in my hands a piece of evidence of the earliest humans to inhabit this island going back nearly 1 million years. They've found over 70 pieces of flint which show signs of human working. And amongst them are even some intact stone tools.
This, we actually nickname this the butter knife because it's so pretty. But you can see all the evidence of human working there, that bulb with percussion wings coming out from that characteristic rippling. And actually on this piece, they've modified that edge. It would certainly be ideal as some sort of, for cutting meat.
Yeah.
So this is the original sort of knife and fork of the old Stone Age.
And it's still sharp.
And after 800,000 million years.
No human remains have yet been found to confirm who made these tools. But it was a truly ancient species, some 750,000 years older than even the Neanderthals. So Happisburgh has pushed back the earliest human occupation of Britain by at least 200,000 years. But what's really remarkable is that the humans living here back then were surviving in extremely harsh conditions. At this time, Britain was approaching an ice age. How did these early species manage to survive here? Were they more advanced than we've previously thought? These are the questions now facing experts like Chris Stringer from the Natural History Museum. So what were those capabilities? Did these people have control of fire? Did they have clothes?
Whether they had clothing, whether they had the use of fire, we can't tell from here.
They must have had ways of keeping warm.
Well, that's right, yes. I mean, the environment was comparable to, say, southern Scandinavia at the present day. And yes, I think, stick us in the winters in southern Scandinavia today and we would have problems coping. So we'd have to imagine, probably, that there was at least basic clothing and probably the use of fire. But the evidence has yet to be found.
It does make us look again at these earlier human species, and perhaps they were more sophisticated than we've given them credit for.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Their capabilities were far greater, and that's really exciting. So we have to make them, in some ways, certainly more like us than we would have believed.
We know there were people here in Britain nearly 1 million years ago. They were surviving in incredibly cold conditions. It gives us newfound respect, I think, for those earlier human species. And at the end of the day, it's those insignificant finds that archaeological revolutions are made of. We don't know how long those people survived here, but they were eventually wiped out by the vicious climate. For hundreds of thousands of years, Britain went through some of the most violent climate changes in world history, which repeatedly forced people out. So these were not our ancestors. To find them, we have to go forward hundreds of thousands of years to the end of the last ice age, and to a site in modern-day Nottinghamshire where they once lived. It wasn't until around 13,000 years ago that Britain became recolonised by modern humans, Homo sapiens, people like us. And this time, they were here to stay. And they were living in caves like these at Creswell Crags at the end of the last ice age. We know that these people were physically identical to us, but archaeologists are relentless in their search to find out just how similar they were to us in other ways, searching for those elusive things which let us feel truly connected to them. Cave art can speak to us like nothing else, a distant echo from an ancient world with no written language. And since the discovery of the famous Lascaux rock art in France in the 1940s, the hunt has been on to find similar rock art in Britain. Archaeologists scoured the walls of caves like these, but found nothing. And they put that down to Britain being such a challenging environment back then, that people were just surviving, clinging on to existence with their fingernails. They didn't have time for frivolities like rock art. That belief was turned on its head by discoveries made in this cave, where I met Ian Wall. He's an archaeologist and director of Cresswell Crags. Thank you.
So you're now standing at the level that we think our prehistoric ancestors were sort of 12, 13,000 years ago. So it's the best place to actually view the rock art that they were creating.
So I can see a few scratches on the walls here.
Yes. Would you like to come and stand here and I'll show you? This is one of the first figures that was discovered in 2003. But you can just pick out some fainter engraved lines here.
At first, I struggled to see what Ian was seeing. Gradually, an image emerged.
This is the top of a neck of an animal.
Yeah, all right, you're convincing me.
And the ear.
And coming down here,
that's right.
A mouth. Is
that's
that a
right,
mouth?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that's the chin running underneath, yes.
Is this a leg down here? Is it coming down to a leg?
Yeah, that's right. The legs here, and then the underbelly of the animal.
That's remarkable. There it was, appearing right before my eyes, the image of a deer. We can imagine perhaps how important this creature would have been to our ancestors. It was almost certainly one of the things that kept them alive. So how do you know that that is Ice Age?
Crucially, you get these deposits of flowstone. It's redeposited calcite, and that forms a thin skin of deposit, and sometimes that lies over the top of these engraved lines.
That's this white area
That's
here.
right, yes. And that can be dated fairly precisely with a technique called uranium series dating.
Right, so if you can date that flowstone, then if the engravings are underneath it, they must predate it.
That's right, yes.
So how old is that flowstone?
So it's roughly around 13,000 years old.
So we really are looking at Ice Age art?
Yes, that's the clincher.
This is the oldest rock art to be found anywhere on these islands. So much of archaeology is about how people live their lives in quite a mundane way, the tools they made, the diet they were eating, that sort of thing. But here we've got art, which is something a little bit different, and it does give you a real connection back to those people. It's incredibly evocative. You can imagine them in that cave making those images on the wall, and I rather like the mystery that we will never know what it really means. I'm on my way to a dig in Orkney, where archaeologists are finding out more about early farmers and their mysterious beliefs. My destination is the tiny island of Westray, home to a site called the Links of Noltland, where one of this year's most exciting digs is happening. Wow, what a way to see an archaeological site, this bird's eye view looking straight down on it. Looks great, can't wait to get down there. Many Neolithic sites are monumental and ceremonial. They're really impressive, but it's like going to a cathedral to find out how everyday people live today. This site is different. I've come here because archaeologists are unearthing vital evidence of early farms. And these are the extraordinary and rare remains of a 5,000-year-old village where the farmers once lived. Archaeologists here are uncovering a remarkable story of a struggle to survive. Then as now, these islands must have felt like the edge of the world. I was given a tour around the site by Richard Strachan.
It's almost always windy in Orkney. The weather can be on your side sometimes. A little bit of rain on the site's very good as well archaeologically. It keeps the soil nice and moist, so it is challenging.
Yeah, it is like you have 4 seasons in one day. I can't believe it was raining this morning and now we've got sunshine.
It's very normal here.
Should we go over and have a look at what some of the
Yeah,
archaeologists are finding? The buildings are covered with a layer of ancient rubbish or midden, and it's from this that many of the signs of everyday prehistoric life are appearing.
So the whole site is basically sealed by this midden material, and this is containing the shell, the bone, all that sort of stuff. And you can see that we're getting pottery too within this. We're getting flint.
Is that a piece of pottery down there?
Yeah, this is a fantastic piece of pottery that Sean's just uncovered. You can see the wonderful decoration on it.
Because this archaeology is only centimetres below the surface, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can see, literally, you're looking at it in places, it's very, very shallow.
Under the sand is the evidence the archaeologists have been hoping for. Proof that people here were growing barley, which was one of the earliest plants to be domesticated. Hazel Moore is directing excavations here. I want to go and talk to Hazel about something rather interesting over this side of the site. What's the evidence for the barley farming?
Carbonised cereal grain coming from these midden deposits. They had field systems which run from the settlement down the slope, right. And they were middening and enriching the soils there, so presumably that was for growing their crops all around the settlement.
From the field system, evidence of composting is emerging. Each layer of soil tells a story of a struggle to make farming work here.
When we actually look at the profiles, the soil profiles that, from the earliest times, what we have are cultivated soils swamped again and again by blowing sand.
So do you think this would have been a challenging environment to be farming in?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's challenging nowadays and it wouldn't have been any different then. It's light sandy soils are ideal for cultivation in that they can be worked easily and turned easily, but they're also very prone to erosion and it's a very windy place.
The conditions here would have made it difficult to survive just growing crops. But new finds are showing that domesticated animals were extremely important to these early farmers. But yet again, amongst the seemingly mundane finds, there are marvellous glimpses of a vanished world. Emerging from the soils is something which has stunned the archaeologists. The skulls of 40 cattle built into the foundations of a wall. How strange. Can we get a bit closer to it down there?
Yeah, you can come in and have a look down here.
This is really peculiar.
I can see a whole line of them here. This is the outer face of the wall along here, the stones, and that's the inner face there. So they're placed into the core of the wall, into the thickness of the wall.
How peculiar, because that means that they wouldn't have been visible when the building was standing.
No, they would have been placed there when the wall was being built. They would, the foundation level of the building. And you can see, I mean, how they sort of relate to each other. They've been put in sequentially, these ones, and the horns are actually overlapping on those ones, and then they've put some stones in and then some more cattle skulls all along.
It's making them part of a building. It's almost monumentalising them, isn't it?
It's
somehow enshrining them.
Imbuing the building with their spirit or whatever, yeah. Building them into the very foundations.
This strange discovery reinforces what the researchers have learned about the importance of livestock to those early farmers. It's easy to see why cattle were so important in this fragile and remote landscape. And it's yet another glimpse into a mysterious ancient mindset. This is just utterly bizarre, these cattle skulls built into the fabric of a building. We'll never know exactly what they mean, but they obviously represent some complex beliefs. The archaeologists now know that this land was farmed for around 50 generations, but eventually the struggle proved too great. Overcome by the wind and sand, they gave up and abandoned their village. It appears that the buildings were deliberately filled in with rubble, within which archaeologists found what could be a defining symbol of the farmers' defeat.
Now, of course, this is something we found last year, which really is quite unique, and we hadn't seen anything like this from the whole of Scotland before.
You brought her to show me how lovely.
Well, there she is in all her glory. I think you can take her.
Very small.
Yeah.
This tiny figurine is known as the Westray Wifey, and despite her homespun appearance, she may be the earliest known expression of religious identity ever found in Scotland.
She's really sweet. She's got a very cartoon-like face, hasn't she?
She has. We can just pick out that she has eyes and a very sort of curvy eyebrow.
Yeah.
And she's got this sort of a very rough mouth, but she also got arms down by her sides. In her design.
Yeah. And there's scratches on the top of her head as well.
Yeah, like her hair almost.
Yeah.
Where the figurine was found makes her even more intriguing. She seems to have been carefully positioned in the abandoned ruins.
It seems like she was probably put there deliberately as a closing deposit. She was placed there.
Yeah.
And then there's no evidence that anybody ever came and did anything here again, so that was probably their way of marking the close of that settlement.
She's really sweet.
Hazel believes the wifey's placing may have been a ritual end to the farmers' long struggle.
We're actually seeing how people thought, that they decided that this was a good way to close this building off at the end of the period. So it gives you much more of an insight into how people's minds worked at the time.
If the researchers are right, then the Westray Wifey is unique. A 5,000-year-old household goddess, perhaps.
Figurines of this type are usually thought to be goddesses or, some religious deity kind of thing. Given that she's the only one that we have and we don't have widespread representations, it's hard to argue that she is definitely a goddess. It seemed that she must be representational of some concept, religious concept.
It's rather wonderful to hold this tiny little figurine. It's rather hard to know what she meant for the people that made her, but nonetheless, she's a fantastic little message from the past and utterly unique.
But just days after I left the dig, a second figurine was unearthed, bolstering Hazel's belief that these may have been household goddesses. This is just the third season of digging here. Every day, more of the mysterious settlement is revealed. For thousands of years, people had buried their dead in communal graves. Then around 4,500 years ago, something changed in that time-honoured ritual, and people began to be buried in individual graves, something which seems much more familiar to us today. This is Culdathol Man. He was discovered in 1975, and he had been buried in the new way.
This is very well preserved, considering this is a 4,000-year-old skeleton.
His skeleton is curated by Alison Sheridan. In his grave, archaeologists found a beaker, a distinctive clay pot that was the symbol of this new burial style. We know that beaker burials started on the continent, but once they arrived here, they spread rapidly throughout the country. And the question that has perplexed archaeologists for 150 years is how that beaker culture spread so far so quickly. Now a team of archaeologists is using cutting-edge science to work that out. They want to know if it was just the ideas that travelled, or if the people did too. Janet Montgomery and Jane Evans are analysing the isotopic signatures of beaker skeletons like Culdathel Man to find out where they lived and whether they moved during their lifetimes. To do that, they must painstakingly extract some tooth enamel from each Bronze Age individual.
We only need a very small amount, less than a match head size of tissue, but you have to make sure when you take it that it's not contaminated. It has to be cleaned, it has to be carefully removed so you don't mix up the tissues, and that it's free from any contamination from the burial. What we want to do is take something that tells you about the person when they were alive, not what's happened during the time their body's been buried in the ground.
Chemicals in each sample tell us where that person grew up. We know where they were then buried, so we can tell if someone moved during their lifetime or if they stayed in their childhood home. Janet and Jane have analysed over 250 beaker skeletons in this way. The project has been 5 years in the making. It's the biggest ever survey of our prehistoric ancestors. And Culdathel Man is the latest to join it. His teeth were in such poor condition that Jane had to use a different technique to extract the sample.
These teeth have got almost no enamel remaining on them. So what I did, instead of slicing the tooth up, I had to pick off very carefully with forceps small fragments of the enamel.
Jane managed to obtain a sample, but once she got the results, she was convinced there had been a mistake.
It was only after I got the enamel results in triplicate that I was convinced and happy enough with the result to tell everybody else what we'd got.
The analysis has been carried out here at the British Geological Survey, and after 5 years, the researchers are just beginning to bring all their results together and draw some conclusions. I wonder how our man from Culdathel has done.
The isotope composition that his teeth gave suggested that he came from an area of this type of rock. This area of Antrim, and it's the Antrim basalts.
Do you think he's Irish?
That is the most likely place for him to have come from.
How interesting.
Yeah. And so he managed to make it from his childhood site here to his burial site up and around here.
So around 4,000 years ago, Culdathel Man moved 300 miles across the seas from his Irish home to his Scottish grave, where he lay buried in a signature beaker burial. But Culdathel Man is just one of the 250 skeletons from around the country which could explain how the beaker culture spread. What about the isotope project as a whole? What is it telling you about this period in the Bronze Age and about populations moving around?
A lot of the evidence that I've got from this project and other data, they seem to be very mobile at this time.
The survey reveals some intriguing results, showing our ancestors travelling long distances across the country. Results from beaker burials in the Yorkshire Wolds area, for example, showed that over 50% of the individuals sampled had moved there from somewhere else. Some from as far afield as Scotland. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you tend to think that people in these prehistoric societies were perhaps a lot more settled than that.
The further back you go, the more settled they were.
Yeah,
It doesn't work that way.
No.
This project is really interesting because of the scale of it. They've looked at 250 individuals, and that means we can start to answer some of those big questions about the population of Britain during the Bronze Age. I'm on my way to meet a group of amateur archaeologists who are uncovering a remarkable story about Bronze Age Britain. 4,000 years ago, these waters would have been buzzing with ships. Bronze Age Britons were travelling and trading the length of this coast. I'm heading towards a site that has yielded a treasure trove of beautiful objects and vivid proof of the early importance of trade and the risks that traders ran. We're about half a mile off the coast near Salcombe in South Devon. We're approaching really carefully because there are divers down there at the moment. Hello.
Hi. Morning. Hello, Alice. Hello.
Hello. Hello. These aren't professional archaeologists, they're divers who've found a love for history, and for me that makes what they're finding here all the more special. It's real dedication here. These guys are down at Salcombe every few weeks, diving in the same spot, constantly looking for new objects that are coming up from the seabed. The team dive using underwater metal detectors to scan the seabed. In the last few months, their dedication has paid off with a massive haul of objects, which have been sent to the British Museum, where they're being analysed by curator Ben Roberts.
In total, we've got over 300 objects. We're still working through them at the moment, and they're still being found. That's the fantastic thing. What's amazing about this particular collection of objects, it encapsulates where we were culturally about 3,000 or so years ago. You have swords, and this was, for your Bronze Age warrior, what you would have used in conflict against your neighbours. And we have plenty of evidence for warfare at this time. Also, you have large-scale trade. This is proper large-scale trade in commodities.
So that's the next couple of divers going down. The divers can spend up to an hour at a time underwater at a depth of 10 metres. I was talking to Jim and he said that the seabed, the sediments, the gravels move around quite a bit down there, so every time they dive there might be something new exposed. The group dive around once a month. Because the seabed is constantly moving, it's impossible to predict whether they'll find anything. Perhaps the most eye-catching of the finds so far examined at the British Museum is the exquisite jewellery.
Usually when we find Bronze Age gold from this time, from about just over 3,000 years ago, we find relatively simple gold objects. So for instance here, you have a fragment of what would have been a twisted gold neck ring, where you take your gold bar and you twist it. Similarly, you have gold bracelets. These are solid bar bracelets. They've just taken a bar of gold and they've just twisted it around the wrist. What this means is that these bracelets here are just far in excess of anything that had come before. Here you have 8 strands of gold wire that have been twisted on their own and then bound together to create this stunning little bracelet, which, when it came off the seabed, was just perfectly coiled. These represent the absolute pinnacle of Bronze Age gold working.
So what we've got here is this small group of divers who are spending all their free time combing the seabed down here in South Devon. And they're making really significant discoveries that are helping us to understand the Bronze Age that little bit better. Both the divers and Ben have reached the same conclusion about why these objects are here.
Although we're still finding objects and the stories are still being written, I think this is probably a shipwreck. And I say that because we're finding things that we don't normally find on land, and we don't normally find when they've been deliberately placed in rivers and deliberately placed in bogs, as we have all over Britain.
The group have discovered one of the oldest shipwrecks in Britain. No remains of the ship itself have been found, but most of the objects were probably its cargo. But there's a mystery here too. The majority of the objects date to around 2300 BC, but some date to a few centuries later. Ben has been trying to work out why this could be.
I think there's only 2 ways that you can really explain why these objects ended up off the south coast of Devon in the same place. And one is a shipwreck, or maybe 2 shipwrecks. And the other one is to say, well, they were deliberately placed there. So we have this tradition in the Bronze Age of placing bronze and gold objects in special points in the landscape, such as hillsides or in bogs and springs. So it's possible that it was a combination of the two, with one taking place slightly earlier as a shipwreck and one potentially later as a dedication. It's really hard to say.
So the objects with the later dates may have been an offering thrown into the sea in remembrance of that original shipwreck. It's a touching thought. Although the gold objects found by the divers are the most beautiful and striking, they are not the most important of the finds. Instead, it's some much more mundane lumps of tin.
These ingots that we have, absolutely the first tin ingots we've ever been found in the Bronze Age in Northern Europe. Very exciting for me, I understand, not necessarily aesthetically beautiful for everyone else, but nonetheless very exciting. The tin ingots represents this missing link in our Bronze Age world between the finished bronze objects that we have here, the bronze ingots. So it's these that represent our first evidence of the tin trade in this part of the world. So it's these, for an archaeologist, that are actually more exciting than the gold.
Archaeologists have long suspected that the southwest, with its naturally occurring tin ore, would have played a central role in supplying this raw material across Europe. This is the crucial evidence they've been waiting for, found by our amateur team. Those bubbles coming out there mean there's a couple of divers just about to break the surface, which is very exciting. I wonder what they found. Hello, Mick.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Oh, welcome.
Did you find anything?
An old bullet.
Right. No, it's not Bronze Age, is it, Mick?
No.
It's very disappointing. Well, they didn't find anything today, but undoubtedly there's more of this Bronze Age shipwreck to come to light here. And of course, what we're looking at is a 3,000-year-old tragedy. Imagine this boat laden with tin and copper ingots making its way along the coast here, and perhaps they were just in sight of a safe harbour when disaster struck. We'll never know whether the crew managed to survive, but their precious cargo of copper and tin was claimed by the sea. We started our million-year journey with finds of rudimentary flint tools made by ancient hominins. As we've travelled forward through time to discover this complex trading society, everything has become more familiar. What strikes me is that in our prehistory are quite clearly the roots of what we think of today as our culture, our way of life. And what really brought that home were some discoveries made in the grave of a chieftain in Fort Eviat in Scotland last year. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb, he reportedly said, "I see things, wonderful things." This is what really happens when archaeologists make those amazing discoveries.
Oh my God!
Oh my God! This is the dramatic moment last year when archaeologists filmed themselves as they lifted the capstone of a 4,000-year-old tomb. It would change our understanding of how Bronze Age people buried their loved ones. After discovering the tomb with geophysics, archaeologist Kenny Brophy and his team had to wait a year to be able to open it.
Oh my God.
It's like something metal.
This is cool.
We might have to bleep that out.
Yes, there's a lot of excitement on site.
This is an incredibly exciting moment in archaeology, isn't it? Because a lot of archaeological excavation is about painstakingly
painstakingly removing thin layers of soil, very gradually uncovering things.
Yes.
This is a rather momentous uncovering of a grave. It must be quite exciting to be standing there at the time.
It was. I mean, it was really a set-piece moment. There was a real sense that we just didn't know what we were going to find, which is one of the great excitements of archaeology, of course, but this really was a mystery.
Oh, for Christ's sake, what happened?
The stone-lined grave known as a kist held many treasures, and it would prove to be the grave of a Bronze Age chieftain. But there was one big surprise. No sign of his body remained.
This is really peculiar, isn't it? You've taken this stone off the top of the kist burial and you're confronted with objects which are, you know, fantastic. You know you've got organic remains, but there's no skeleton.
Well, that was the thing that immediately struck us, because I imagined in my mind's eye that when the kist was opened, we would see a skeleton lying there, maybe with a nice piece of pottery next to it, and nothing I saw conformed to anything that I expected.
But the team did recover this mysterious white material.
One thing we did notice when we were digging, though, that there was a kind of white powder stuck to the side of the kist.
It was this powder that would solve the mystery of the missing skeleton.
We found out there was some kind of calcite substance which would suggest it came from bone, and that bone was perhaps broken down by body fluids that were leaking from the body, and then the bones all dissolved.
Right, so this is bone mineral, but bone mineral that's been dissolved and then redeposited inside that grave.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And this is all that's left?
Yeah, this is all that's left. So essentially, that bag of material there is probably the only remnants that are left of the person who was buried in this kist, which is, I suppose, a sad end, really, to this person.
From almost the first moment, the team suspected they had a high-status burial, and one key find confirmed that. This magnificent dagger.
This is very elaborate, isn't it?
It's a fantastic piece of Bronze Age technology involving a large blade of bronze, which is a copper and tin alloy, rivets holding it together, a bone handle, a band of gold which is holding it all together. There's wooden pins involved here as well. So this is an object that's not just about the metal of the dagger, it's about so much more than that.
This is a really beautiful, elaborate object.
The sheer rarity of these in the archaeological record suggests that what we're dealing with here is someone who was very important, and someone who, this dagger perhaps was a symbol of their power and symbol of their importance. So it was entirely appropriate that when they died, that ended up in the grave with them.
After the initial discovery, it's back here at the lab that most of the work has been done to identify the objects found in the grave.
We found a group of objects that were perhaps in a leather bag, and these include these strange-looking objects here, a lump of a metallic substance, which is an iron ore called limonite, a yellow iron ore, and then it's lying on top of this stone tool, which is made of flint.
These objects served a very particular purpose in the Bronze Age.
And the combination of these two suggests that this is probably some kind of fire-making kit, a striker light that maybe was something portable that could be carried about.
And Kenny, do you think a fire-making kit like this would have been something that everybody would have been carrying around, or just particular special people?
The balance of probability is that these were objects associated with powerful people. Perhaps making fire was something that powerful people were associated with. But we can't rule out the fact that these may be everyday objects that everyone had because everyone needed fire.
We know exactly what it was used for, but we're not sure whether that use was a special, magical use, or perhaps whether it's something as ordinary as a box of matches. All we know is that the people burying this person thought he should have it with him in the grave.
Yes, yeah.
But for me, the most exciting finds from this grave are also the smallest ones.
And there they are. In amongst those objects in the grave, archaeologists also found these tiny things. They're flower heads. Now,
Archaeologists often find pollen in graves, but pollen could get there because it's blown in, or perhaps arrives in the grave in food and drink that have been placed in there with the body. But here what we have is actual flower heads of meadowsweet. So we know for the first time that Bronze Age people placed flowers in the graves of their dead, that flowers were part of the Bronze Age funeral ritual, just as they are today. This is a piece of meadowsweet just waiting to flower in the summer. So we know that whoever it was that was interred in that grave at Forteviot, he was buried there during the summer months. And I just find it amazing that something so ephemeral, those flower heads, have survived through thousands of years. And whilst the physical remains, the bones of that person, have long since disappeared, what we have got is the evidence of this incredibly tender act of placing flowers in somebody's grave. It's something that gives us a real sense of connection back to those Bronze Age people. In our million-year journey, we've found out that our history goes back much further than we ever thought possible. And we've seen that over time, a complex society emerged in which the foundation stones of our own can be found. We've discovered a rich culture that has developed since those Ice Age artists first left their mark in the caves. And what this journey shows us is that our prehistory is still a part of who we are today. And it's a part of our story that's only revealed with the help of archaeology. And so the digging continues.